This episode of the AFTN Soccer Show is brought to you by Recovery Family Law. Recovery Family Law is here to help you solve your family law problems. If you are going through a separation or divorce, they can provide you the confidence to make good decisions and support to enforce your rights. If you have a question about property, children or support, they have the answers. It's not too late or too early to get help. Email info@recoveryfamilylaw.ca or visit recoveryfamilylaw.ca and let their team get you excellent results.
Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
10 minutes left. Yeah, but there's still some time. It's not the final score. We need more than the numbers we're given. Show us you live and breathe the game. You're more than a name. That's what we came for. We can bring you more than the score. Every story. Let's take this thing off of the field into the real world, away from the numbers.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. There's still time. The AFTN Soccer Show, broadcasting on CITR Radio 101.9 FM from the unceded Musqueam Territory at the University of beautiful British Columbia. Brought to you in partnership with recoveryfamilylaw.ca. I'm Michael McCall.
And I'm Zachary Adam Eisenhower.
And we've got another packed show for you this evening. So much stuff to cover. We're going to talk Whitecaps. We're going to talk MLS. We're going to talk Canadian Championship. We're going to talk heartbreak. We're going to talk Canadian men's national team and a lot more football chat thrown in as well. The football keeps coming. The podcasts keep coming. It's another late night record. My voice feeling a little bit rough again after calling 12 goals this afternoon in League One BC action. That might be the most goals I've called in an afternoon of commentary. So that was good. Then came home, got some Uncle Fatty's pizza on the way home, had a can of How Sound Brewery Diamond Head Nitro Stout. Not sponsors of the show. Happy for them to be sponsors if they want to. So I had pizza, can of stout, cinnamon bun, and then crashed out for an hour and a half.
That sounds like a good way to end your day.
It would have been, except I'm now back up again, recording a podcast for 3 hours probably. I try and get them to be 2, but it doesn't work out that way. Last week's show, we actually had over 3.5 hours worth of material, so I had to cut over half an hour out to make it into the 3 hours.
You cut out all my good parts and all your...
I cut you out altogether. It's basically just me and a solo show.
You cut out all your quote-unquote funny...
All my funny, quote-unquote funny bits are still in. Sometimes I forget we're recording. Not all of them. Not all of them. The stuff we did cut out, a big chunk of it, is actually going to feature in part 4, which was the chat about Canadian men's national team coaching search. Because nothing seems to have really changed in the last week, so we can use all the stuff we had recorded. I almost brought it out as an extra podcast, but I didn't even have time for that because it's been such a busy week. Well, before we get into that, how has your week been? You done any stuff with Lego this week? Played any tabletop games? Any other nerdy stuff?
Not much with Lego. You played tabletop. The boy and I had.
I mean, the only tabletop game is Subbuteo.
Yeah, no, that's not. I don't have Subbuteo. I have a Subbuteo bottle opener.
You do.
Is that thanks to you or Steve?
That was me.
That was you. Okay,
yeah, sorry. That's brought back from Scotland.
Right. I use it often. Whenever I bring like beverages to work, the students all love. They're like, "Oh, where's that cool soccer player bottle?"
It's
We're
very heavy.
When we're opening Dad's root beer.
Of course. If you hear some weird noise, my dog's just chosen this moment to start sleep barking. It's like perfect timing from Annie. She loves to just gate crash the show.
There you go.
Yeah.
But no, the favorite part of my week was, of course, the week before I did a 28-hour trip to Calgary by a car. This week we did what was it? Was it about 16-hour flight?
That's not
flight
too
trip.
bad.
Yeah, no, it was great.
Yeah, I
was
shared
great.
all your pictures. It was just constant notifications going off on my phone from your Instagram.
Was that okay?
No, it's fine.
Oh, okay. All right.
The AFTN Instagram is basically feast or famine. Nothing goes on it for weeks, and then this week, everything was on it. We're going to talk about your trip to Cavalry in part 3 when we look ahead to the big game coming
Sweet.
up on Tuesday.
Yes.
So we'll
Very
talk
big.
about, we'll just lump all that in then. I'll talk about my big trip this week, and we'll talk Canadian Championship in this part as well, because there was more Canadian Championship heartbreak for me as I was over with TSS on the island midweek for their first round matchup with Pacific FC. As most of you will know, TSS took the lead in the 76th minute, held it as they went into stoppage time. 6 minutes of stoppage time. Pacific, though, tied it up in the 8th minute of stoppage time. And then TSS lost on penalties, despite saving the first 2 spot kicks as well. Heartbreak.
At least as you told me, at least as you texted me, Josh Hurd didn't start the game, right?
No, that little kick I got in at training seemed to do the trick.
I told you, if he comes on, you just need to kick him.
Well, he, of course, it had to be him that scored the decisive penalty. Yeah. And I'll tell some tales about me sitting down at the halfway line at the entrance to the pitch. But this tale that I'll tell was he came up to take the kick, and I said to Trisha and Mimi, the 2 Pacific comms people there, oh yeah, it would be him, wouldn't it? And then they laughed. I went, I slag him off every single week in the podcast, tell him how much I hate him for diving. And they were like, oh, he'll take that in good spirits. He likes a joke. Let's test that. Let's get him on the show and test that.
Did you tell them that it wasn't a joke?
No.
Were you?
No. I wasn't in a joking mood by that point either. I mean, it was a fascinating game because TSS, 11 days notice for this game. And although they kind of knew that we were going to get it, it still wasn't 100%. We hoped we were going to get it. So you do a little bit of prep, but you can't do full prep. And TSS went into this game missing 4 players that would have been starters. But just in a normal game, if the whole squad was fully fit. Eric Edwardson, Golden Boot in League One in 2022, 7 goals in League One last year, just 1 off the Golden Boot. Struggling with a groin injury. He's going to still be out for a few more weeks, so he was missing. Gabriel Escobar got injured in VMSL action. Even Mejia got injured. Fugo Sagawa broke his leg earlier in the VMSL season. All these guys are weeks out from being fully fit. Even Mejia did manage to get a cameo appearance, but that's 4 key players. And then you also lost one of the starting fullbacks from last year, Nico Papakyriakopoulos, who is over in Scandinavia. I have to say Scandinavia because I can't remember if it's Denmark, Norway, or Sweden. I think it's Norway, though.
Yeah, you told me you were going to have to be the fill-in for left back if it needs must at the end.
Well, they had 20 players and me that were over, ready to make the squad.
And Ivan Mejia did come in and play a significant role in the game too, unfortunately.
Sadly, yes, he did miss the vital penalty for TSS, but he wasn't alone in missing, which does obviously make it. But I mean, he just, it was heartbreaking because he just was in floods of tears. He was absolutely distraught after the game. It was just so sad to see, just absolutely sobbing his heart out. But it was a bit more upbeat the next day, and we'll come to that in a sec as well. But I mean, just it's TSS and heartbreak and late goals seem to go hand in hand. Last year, they lost the League One Championship regular season title in the 97th minute in Victoria giving up 2 goals in stoppage time. This one, 98th minute, just absolute heartbreak, although it worked out well anyway, them losing last year because they got in the tournament. And then you've also got to think of other Canadian Championship heartbreak, which still, up until those last 2 TSS games I've mentioned, was the worst moment of my football watching life, when it looked like the Whitecaps were going to win the Voyageurs Cup, and then Will fucking Johnson pounces on a mistake in a collision with David Ousted and Kendall Waston and fires in a goal, breaking hearts. And you've got a fun story to tell about that.
Oh yeah, I've told them about this before. I was standing behind the Whitecaps bench, poised to carry out, you don't really present it, but carry out the Voyageurs Cup. And right before I went down, I was I don't know if Jamie was with us from the V's or what, but he was sitting with Squiz, and so I said, well, Squiz should come down, like, just in case. This is football, anything can happen. So like, I really don't want to be presenting this to TFC. So I said, Squiz, just come down just in case or whatever. And so Squiz was behind the bench with me. Daniel Squizato, those who don't know him as Squiz. And yeah, then that happened. I was like, I looked at him, I was like, I think I said something like, oh, it's a good thing you came. But yeah, that was pretty brutal. Although I don't have the same negative feelings towards Will Johnson that you do, because I've had some really good conversations with Will Johnson over the year, and I do appreciate him.
Well, I'll tell you my heartbreak moment in a sec as well, that happened at this game. But it was a fantastic battling performance by TSS, and first game in charge for head coach Brendan Teeling. This was the Rovers' first competitive game of the season, and they did fantastic out there. So I just want to play a little bit of post-game audio from Tilo about that heartbreaking loss.
I'm so sorry. So close. Yeah, I'm still quite emotional, so just a difficult one to take.
What are your thoughts on the way the guys battled out there, defensively, offensively?
Yeah, I think it was just a massive team effort. We just tried to stay compact, make it difficult for them, frustrate them, and it nearly worked.
You make the offensive talent on your group that you're able to hold on. You guys get a moment of magic with the goal you scored.
We've got so much quality going forward. It gives me a headache to make a decision in terms of the starting 11. Mikey came off the bench and does what he does best. He just took his goal really, really well. But we've got so much quality going forward, yeah.
So you guys are doing the shit when you make that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely tired legs. They put everything on line. It just wasn't enough over the 96, 7, 8 minutes, whatever it was.
Just third time the Rovers have gone up against the CPL team, a win, a draw, close loss. What does that say to the talent in the group, and maybe League One BC as a whole? Do you feel maybe it's being a bit ignored in terms of talent?
I mean, I think this is just proof of the pudding that you can't really take any opposition for granted. Our organization has that kind of bite. We're a bit different. And yeah, we just seem to have a knack for this competition. So maybe next year.
Brendan Teeling, TSS Rovers head coach, his first ever post-game press conference. But at least he went to the press conference, which we will come to shortly as well. But it was a good trip. And I said this last year when I was over with him. And for anyone that doesn't know, AFTN are TSS Rovers' media partner, and I am the press officer for TSS, which is why all that stuff was on our socials in the last couple of days as well. But I talked about this last year, seeing that side of things, the behind-the-scenes side, how the players get ready, their meal routine, the training talks, everything like that. It just gives you a whole different insight into the game. And like even down to like League One level, just the professionalism that goes into it, the hard work that goes into it, and guys like Ryan Lindsay, the analyst for TSS, they all deserve huge credit. Pushed Pacific all the way. Still the only team to score against Pacific this season, which is fantastic. And what a goal it was as well. Michael Hennessy, I'd been bigging him up in the pre-game press conference to the media that were on. I was saying he's a star, watch out for him. And a great move, Devin O'Hay, lovely little flick inside. It's the SFU understanding. Hennessy with a beautiful finish. Matteo Polisi trying to break his neck with a headlock as they ran to the corner flag. But, it was joyous. And that joy lasted until the 97th minute. And this is the story that I want to share. So, at the end of the match, all the Canadian Championship games and the CPL games, there's a Gatorade performer of the match. So it was deemed to be TSS Rovers centre-back, Danilo Shmachenko. Well-deserved, marshalled that backline, a defence, a rock at the back for TSS on the night, and very well-deserved. So when they're doing their interviews, you might have noticed this and not even thought about it, they have a Gatorade towel that has to sit on their shoulder while they're being interviewed on camera. So with TSS winning, going into stoppage time, I had to make my way down to the halfway line to go on the pitch to grab Danilo, and also Michael Hennessy was going to get interviewed by One Soccer as well. So they gave me the Gatorade towel to present to him. So I'm sitting there.
You were the towel boy.
I was the towel boy, yeah. So I was sitting there, towel in hand, and my clutch getting tighter and tighter on it, and then Pacific equalised. And then the towel was taken away from me.
Oh, I was going to ask you, what happened? So they took it away from you?
No, I kind of said to Trisha, because Trisha, the Pacific person, was in charge of it, and I was like, I'll just give you the towel back now. I felt what was coming.
So, like, knowing you, Michael, I thought you would have like tucked it in your bag and brought it home.
A free gift. But this is something that actually pissed me off. So Danilo Shmachenko gets the man of the match, a defender who hadn't scored.
Nice.
And was outstanding.
Nice.
But in Canada, you can't give the man of the match to the losing team.
No.
So it got given to Rion Moore, who had done absolutely nothing for the whole game, apart from stick his leg out and turn the ball in the net for the equaliser.
To be fair, he did also miss a fairly open
true,
chance.
yes. Yeah. From a TSS point of view, he was one of the performers of the game up to that point as well.
Yeah. Yes.
But then, like, the penalty shootout started, and there's correspondence going back and forward, and it's like, okay, we're going to change the man of the match now to TSS goalkeeper Justin Sandu, because he saved the first two spot kicks.
Oh, yeah.
And then it got changed to Rion Moore at the last minute.
Brutal.
Yeah. But, yeah, it was tough, but as I said, it was good seeing it all. And the guys were gutted, and they were heartbroken on the night of it. The bus was quiet going back. The dressing room was obviously quiet as well. The next morning, though, it kind of, a little bit of realisation kind of sunk in, because TSS had wanted to play if they'd got through, they wanted to play the first leg in about May 15th. But Canada Soccer were ideally pushing for all the games to be played next week, the first legs of it, which was going to cause us big problems for ticketing, security, all the logistical things. And it wasn't really going to work in our favour. Plus, we would have had to have paid for Ottawa to fly here, whereas they're going to, if it was the next week, they'd have been between two games, Vancouver FC and Pacific, so they would have been in BC anyway. So it wasn't looking good in that regard. Then you saw the Ottawa performance, and it's like two-legged ties, and we'll get into that in a sec. But a two-legged tie, if Ottawa ran out winners by a couple of goals in that first leg, how do you motivate a group of amateur players to take time off work to fly 5 hours east to play a second leg in a game that's kind of meaningless? That's why these should be one-legged games, not just from a TSS point of view, but just in general.
No, they should totally, like this first round. I don't like. First off, I don't like them calling it the preliminary.
No, first round.
There's nothing preliminary about it. The tournament as a whole needs to be single elimination knockout the whole way. I think that the request, which I believe, I could be wrong, but my recollection is that it actually comes from the CPL clubs.
It did indeed.
Requesting home and away to be a part of this is to help generate, I think, gate revenue, but also hype around games, especially, if you're Vancouver FC and you get the Whitecaps, into your ground, or if you're, let's say York and you get TFC into your ground,
Or
or
if you're Forge and you give away 10,000 free tickets and have a game at 11 o'clock in the morning.
Hey, no, but that's yeah.
No, I'm being facetious there. I think
No.
that's a lovely thing that they're doing. That's going to
and
build the future fan base.
Well, and
there's been a lot of pushback against it. I
has been-
understand if you're a Forge fan and you can't make the game, you'd be very pissed off.
Okay, well, I wasn't planning on talking about this, but yeah, no, it's not like this is out of the blue. This is something they do every year. They choose a game, they make it available,
And it was meant to be this weekend's game.
There you go. But I think last year where they did it on a school day during school, so that school kids could make it easier, like make it a field trip or something. Anyways, I think it's great. I think it went well last year from what my memory, and hopefully it goes great again. And let's be honest, right? If you're passionate about supporting your local football club, I assume you'll do all you can to get the day off work to go.
It's very short notice, though.
It is right, but I assume you would do everything you could to get to the match. And if you couldn't make it, it's unfortunate, but also like you have to appreciate the football club also trying to continue to grow, right?
Yeah. What I've learned as an employee and as a manager is the easiest way to get days off work without any questions being asked. On a man's side, I've got really bad diarrhea. No one wants to pry into that. And if you're a woman, period problems, no boss is going to query that either.
Yeah, or hopefully you have a vacation day you could use, or a 6-day, a mental
Well,
health
there's
day,
that as
whatever it is.
And then you're seeing on the TV and it's like, well, his diarrhea got better quickly.
Yeah, or that's his mental health day. He or she are going.
Yeah, everyone's allowed mental health
They're
days.
going there for their mental health.
Exactly. Unless you're a Valor fan attending a Canadian Championship game. I don't think that's good for your mental health.
Oh, let's talk about PDS, man. Oh, man. I'm feeling so bad for him.
Oh, I watched a little bit of his post-game. And he just looked like he did not know what had hit him.
I don't see his post-game. I think I saw his pre-game for the next game where they had to play Ottawa again.
Yeah. How do you lift your players for that?
But, I mean, they
did well.
They had a
5-goal improvement today.
5-goal improvement, exactly. Good job.
Little victories.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. But, I mean, Tilo, after that heartbreak, turned up to the press conference. PDS, after that hammering, turned up to his press conference. Patrice Geyser did not. And, like, regular listeners to the show will know I've a lot of time for Patrice. I love him as a person. He's such a good character. He's a great interview. He's a great coach. He did so well with Vaughan. I like what he's doing at Halifax. It's definitely a project, and I hope he's given time to see this through. He just looked absolutely shell-shocked after that defeat on Thursday, because TSS didn't get the cup set in the end, but CS Saint Laurent, the League One Quebec champions, most certainly did, and that was fantastic. If we can get at least one of these cup sets every year, that's going to just raise interest in the Canadian Championship. I'm not even just talking about League One. It's like if a CPL team knocks out an MLS team, we've already had it with Pacific, we've already had it with Cavalry against the Whitecaps. If we can keep having these upsets and these shocks in the tournament, it's just going to give this tournament more and more stock.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's at least one more this year.
I fancy Forge to beat Montreal. Genuinely
even with the disadvantage of the two legs.
Yeah, the two legs is going to make it tougher for them. But
didn't they last time these two sides played, and I think it was two legs. Didn't it go to a shootout?
I think it did, actually. I don't know if it was two legs, but it definitely went to a shootout.
Yeah. Okay, maybe I'm forgetting.
I think it might have been a one-legged game. But CS Saint Laurent, tip of the hat to them. Fantastic penalty shootout win against Halifax, and they deserved that victory. They played some nice stuff in this game. Halifax had their chances, though. And I'll give Patrice Geyser the benefit of the doubt, because to my knowledge, and I haven't seen stuff the last couple of days, I don't know if he's commented on it as to why he didn't turn up. They waited 20 minutes and then his assistant came out. Now, when he's been here in Vancouver, he's been a little bit late to the press conferences as well. I think he likes to kind of digest everything, maybe watch some stuff back, analyse it. But I just don't think it's a good look. The shot of him on the bench with his head in his hands, I felt so bad for him.
Were there tears there?
I think there was.
Someone said, "Oh, there's tears," and I was like,
Yeah, no,
no.
I did think I saw tears because he's been on both sides of it now.
Yeah,
Because he shocked Halifax when he was with Vaughan, didn't get them through the tie, but he brought out that upset, and
Yeah.
now he's on the other end of the upset. But there's so much talent in Quebec football just now. I had the honour of commentating on the under-17 nationals in Surrey in 2022, and CS Saint Laurent's under-17 boys side won that tournament. And I spoke on the podcast about, oh man, the talent that was there.
Was Mamadou Kane in that side?
I don't know if he was. I don't think he was. I looked at the lineup actually after it to see, and there was none of the players from the 17 that day in this squad. So yeah, Mamadou Kane wasn't. But a lot of those guys have played League One and moved up kind of on the fringes because they're at the younger end of it. But there's so much talent in Quebec. It's why they have to get a CPL side sooner, hopefully, rather than later. And I mean, we're looking not 2025, we're looking at least 2026 now.
Yeah.
And I'd love CS Saint Laurent to be the team that moves up and does that because they've got that academy, they've got everything in place.
Because for Vancouver FC fans and supporters, it was interesting to watch the cup carry on after being eliminated. Because this week you saw Ivan Mejia and the disappointment, right? Former VSC player, get stopped in the shootout, and then you saw former VSC player Mamadou Kane playing in his more natural position. Because I think when he's played for Vancouver, he was played more further. I think he played as a center back essentially, but playing up top, you saw the damage he can do. This was really
he was good in this one. The whole competition, it is skewed against the smaller teams. When it's League One against CPL, it's skewed against the League One teams. When it's CPL against MLS, it's skewed against the CPL teams. And I know that's just the way of world football these days because so much is skewed against smaller clubs just in general in world football. But there is so much talent in League One that is not getting a look for various reasons. I'm talking across all of the League Ones. We were having a few discussions about that during our trip to Langford on the way there, and just lunches and dinners, and then ferry back. My message to the TSS guys were, look, I've watched so many of you for years. I know how talented you are. I know what you can do. There's a number of you that should be in the CPL. There's a number of you that are better than players on this Pacific side. But for whatever reason, you've not had the chance, you've not had the opportunity. Go out there and show them that you've got what it takes to play at the higher level. And they did that. But from being involved in the game now for a few years here, there's so much of who do you know that gets you on. It's like it opens a door for a trial. It opens somebody to come and look at you or whatever. So there's a lot of that. It's a lot of does your face fit? The whole age thing and everything with it as well. There's been so many talented players that are overlooked because they're just deemed too old. Everyone's wanting a young starlet to come through so they can bring them on and sell them and make money. And it's so disappointing because League One in BC, in Ontario, in Quebec, we'll see it in Alberta, we'll see it in the Maritimes when it launches. There is so much talent there that is just not getting a look. And the whole North American soccer system is prohibitive to it because clubs can't just start. Like, if I said to you, hey, let's put together a CPL team, we need a lot of money to do that. If we said, let's put together a League One team, we need a lot of money to do that as well. It's not like over in the UK, and I know it's got the history behind it and everything like that, but you can start in the non-leagues. You can put a team in a park and build its way up and build an infrastructure around it. You've seen what a bit of money can do for Wrexham. Can easily move up the ranks in the English pyramid and stuff as well. But we're so prohibitive here. We lock clubs out, ambitious clubs out that want to do stuff. In League One in BC, they didn't want to let the existing clubs in that had academies, that had a structure. They wanted new clubs to keep it separate. Now that's changed, and you're going to see some of the existing youth clubs come in, which is fantastic. But we need to have the CPL opened up But that's not going to happen because it's too expensive to get a club in there, and the existing owners aren't going to piss away their investment by saying, "Hey, let's open it up now."
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Sorry, that was a bit of a rant. I didn't
No,
mean to
no,
go
no,
off there,
no,
but
it's okay.
it just something it pisses me off so much.
You're not wrong, and yeah, it's we often have these conversations about growing the game, and the best path forward and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I think you and I have a lot of shared and a few divergent opinions on who's doing it well and who's not, and the gatekeeping mechanisms and whatever. But you're right. Yeah, I mean, the money is a massive thing, right? And it would take a few of our best, or sorry, most financially benevolent friends to be involved in any way, shape, or form, right?
Yeah, but I mean, even with that, it's like if you had money, you're pissing it away by investing it in the game because you're not going to get it back. You need to be really philanthropic and be able to bankroll this and basically write that money off.
Yeah, I mean, I think what the CPL owners have done is said, okay, they see themselves as long-term investors in the game, right? Where they don't expect, their expectation is not that they will make money anytime soon, but they're in it because they love the game, and long-term they hope that they'll be able to, right? And I don't want to open a can of worms here, but that's partly what the CSB deal helps, right? It helps long-term potential viability of the whole thing.
Yeah,
It gives
and there'll
it-
be short-term pain, there'll be short-term casualties like the Highlanders, and I'm sure they won't be the
Totally.
only team that falls by the wayside if if they're hamstrung by what sponsors they can get in.
Totally. I mean, you and I have talked about this. That to me is a part of in many ways unfortunate, but it's part of not even just the football business, but like business in general. When you're a part of something that gets taken over by someone new, they have standards, they have policies, they have existing partnerships that will override yours, right? And like, I'm not saying it's a good thing that it happened the way it did and all that kind of stuff. No, but I don't think anyone can logically look at it and be like, oh, they're bad actors in this. No, this is it's very understandable how that all happened, right? And it's understandable why the Highlanders chose to say, okay, we can't move forward in this way anymore either. Is it ideal? Is it good? No, the Highlanders would say that. CPL CSB would say that as well. And I think it's important to also, they're a casualty, but listening to the interview you did with Mark Noonan, when you talk about what CPL CSB has done with League One, is when they began to take things over or began to acquire elements of it, they took it from 40 clubs to some like 200 clubs, right? Like they've grown it 5 times, and I think the number he said in your interview was that 91 of those teams are also women's teams, are women's teams, right? So again, I can't remember if I told you this. So I was speaking with someone recently who again said, what CSB needs to do is they need to publicly share what they've actually done. Because when they share, if they actually share what they have done for the game and growing the game short term and long term, people would be like, oh, okay, this makes more sense, right? It's not a simple. Some people when you read stuff on social media, especially, they're so like some people who I'm surprised they're so anti-CSB is because they've been whipped up and they've read headlines maybe or whatever, but they don't understand how.
Yeah, but part of that
works.
is CSB's fault because they aren't coming out and saying stuff. Now, maybe some of it is covered by confidentiality clauses and stuff as well, but I don't know if they have a PR firm. I would imagine they would, but they'd really need to be sitting down with them and saying, how do we get this across to people to let them know we're not just the bad guys here?
Because the person who was talking to me about this said, why don't you need to tell people this so that they know?
Yeah, if we ever get to sit down with Rob Friend again, we can maybe put that to
totally.
him. I think he's avoiding our calls.
We went on a bit of a tangent there, but
no, but I mean it's fair because like I want to see the Canadian Championship opened up even further. My dream was to have League One clubs in it, or PDL back in the day when TSS were in there. So Colin had said, I can't say anything, but there's an announcement coming that you're going to be very happy with. And that's all he said. And I immediately thought, oh my God, they're opening up the Canadian Championship to League One. So that was to League One BC. So that was what I thought back a couple of years ago now. And I'd like to see it opened up further. And I know there's logistical problems and you'd have to sit down with that. We got sent a very interesting article by one of our readers and listeners about how, like, his idea for a new look Canadian Championship. So we're going to run that on the site this week. It would have got lost with everything that was getting run this past week. So watch out for that and let us know your thoughts on it as well. That is not it for the Canadian Championship chat, though. We're going to talk about the Whitecaps entering the competition in part 3. But next up, we are going to talk Whitecaps in MLS action. And we'll be back with that after this.
Hi, I'm Sam Adekubi, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
Dreams can be so cruel sometimes. I swear I kissed your crying eyes. Dreams can be so cruel sometimes. I swear I kissed your crying eyes.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. Brought to you in partnership with Recovery FamilyLaw.ca. For all your family legal needs, check out recoveryfamilylaw.ca. They support us. Go and support them. And kicking off this part, I went with a sad song. June by Idols from their 2018 album Joy, as an act of resistance.
Is this the band you just saw
That's the
live?
band I just saw, yeah. But it was a downbeat song with the lyrics, dreams can be so cruel sometimes. I would have called this show that, but I called episode 487 that when I played the song previously. But yeah, I went to see Idols on Thursday, and tying in with our show from last week, Idols played for 2 hours. $65 was the ticket.
Oh yeah, I saw you tweet this.
And this is a band that's headlined festivals around the world. They've headlined stages at Glastonbury, so they're a big, big band. $65. That is entertainment. That is value for money. Guess who I bumped into at the gig? I was on the floor, and then I was looking up in the seats at the P&E Forum because I was like...
Was it Dave Morris?
No, well, it might have been. I didn't recognise him. But I was looking to see if there was any good seats because they looked like there was a bit of spots because it was all GA. And then this guy that was beside me was just staring at me. And I was trying to look past him and I was like, okay, he's still staring at me. And then he went, do you watch a lot of football? And I was like, yeah.
Who wants to know?
And he's like, it's Niall. Niall Thompson. I was like, I didn't recognise you in the dark. He was there with his son. His son got a picture with the band afterwards as well, which was so cool.
Nice.
I don't think he joined the mosh pit, but there's a thing that idols do at their gigs, which my back had been playing up, so it's probably a good job I ended up going up into the seats just to get a better view. So they like to separate the crowd, and they get half of it to split, and they go left, half to go right. They leave a big gap in the middle, and then they just all slam into each other when the music starts.
That's like VfB Stuttgart on the opening day of their season on their march. They stop the whole. Everyone does the march. They do one march a year, first game of the year in August, and they all walk on this whatever massive road. And then at one point they stop and they do that. They split in half and half, and then they just. Well, it's like a mosh pit.
Talking of Germans, Borussia Dortmund, the yellow wall. Do you know what CBS did for their coverage this week of the game?
CBS, like the American broadcast?
Yeah.
I didn't know the game was on CBS.
Yeah, I watched it in the hotel room. It was both the semis were free to air on CBS.
Oh, sorry. You're talking about the Champions League. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. Okay. So I was talking about this weekend. I was like, wait.
Oh, no, who
The
cares about
Bundesliga.
Bundesliga? No.
Everyone in Germany.
Yeah, do you know what they did for their
around the world.
coverage?
Know what they do?
They sent Jamie Carragher into the yellow wall.
Did he get abused?
No, he had 8 pints and was quite drunk and was doing his in-game coverage from inside the yellow wall.
That seems a little dodgy. I bet you they had some security by him.
I'm pretty sure he
Not
would
far
have.
away.
No one could understand him anyway with his Scouse accent, I'm sure. All right, lads, so what you doing here? It's a that's a horrendous Liverpool accent.
I've never been in there for a Dortmund match, but only for another. It was a different kind of yellow wall. I saw Brazil-Ghana there in 2006 when Ronnie broke the most goals in the World Cup record, round of 16. The fat Ronnie, the good one.
Okay, the good Ronnie.
Yeah, the good one.
There's 2 Ronnies, not the comedy double act from the 1970s in the UK.
No.
Our cultural references are up and relevant. I was listening. I don't think I mentioned this in the show. I think it was Caitlin I was telling this to, and she wasn't interested in it either. But in the famous Slope and Pitch podcast I was listening to, they were talking about, because they referenced lots of stuff in the 1970s as well, because they're even older than I am. And one of the hosts, Chris England, had said, do you know what struck me this week? We talk about stuff from like 1974, and that's 50 years ago. And when we were kids in the 70s watching TV, they would talk about stuff that happened in the 1920s, and you'd think, my God, that's so long ago. But that's the same period that we're talking about to the modern day people. But we're not here to talk about 1970s, except we are, because the Whitecaps, of course, started in 1974. And this past weekend, on Saturday, it was a special 50th anniversary match. Austin FC came to town, a record-setting crowd, over 32,000 in attendance at BC Place. But sadly, another disappointing performance by the Whitecaps in front of a big crowd. They played well, they dominated the game, but they just couldn't find the breakthrough. A 0-0 draw. It finished Whitecaps 0, Austin 0, referees 2. As VAR played a heavy part in this. I don't know what Fafa Pico has done to the VAR officials, or this referee in particular, but he seemed to really have it in for him. 2 decisions went against Fafa. We'll get into them, obviously, but...
Let's talk about the occasion, though.
Yes. Let's talk about the happy stuff first.
Yeah, the happy stuff, the good stuff. It seemed like a really great day, like a massive day out. Did you get your poster?
I grabbed 2 programs. Afterwards, when we were in the post game, Sarita, I think it was, had said, "Oh, did you get your program?" I was like, "Oh, because yes." And Nathan's like, "Oh, of course, Michael got one."
She gave hers away to Colin Miller. I listened
to the
pregame.
Yeah, I was on the halftime show.
Oh, I didn't listen to that. You should have told me. I would have listened.
I was meant to be on the pregame show, but I got bumped by Bobby Leonarduzzi.
Interesting.
It was an interesting chat I had with Bobby, actually. I was listening to that on the way in. So I was meant to be on at halftime to talk about the 50th anniversary stuff. I spent 5 minutes going on about VAR and referees.
Oh my!
But yeah, no, I heard they were trying to get Sarita's jacket, is what I heard as well. And she said, "I'm wearing gold pants. Do you want them as well?"
Yeah. I thought you might like that.
Well, yeah, because then I saw her afterwards in her gold pants, and I was going to make a comment, but I thought, no,
don't make a
different times. It's not the 70s anymore.
That's right. Good call, Michael. Good call. But no, it was seemed like a great day out. Obviously, record-setting crowd in the MLS.
110 alumni there as well.
Yeah, on the pitch, they called out by the decade or whatever, right?
Yeah, he's the 70s, the 80s.
That was probably the best way to do that, right?
I think because maybe some receptions that maybe some players would get. I was surprised there was so many from the 70s still around.
Yeah, some players from different eras of the club would be received differently. Yeah, I think you're right.
I think so.
I was also shocked that the MLS era was so poorly represented.
Yeah, it just seemed to be Jay Demerit. Unless I missed something, it just seemed to be Jay Demerit. Unless he got a special introduction as himself as the first signing in the MLS era, but
But because I thought for sure David Osted will be there, but he
He
was
sent a
on the
video message.
He was
Yeah.
on the video, yeah. But yeah, I don't Rusty,
I didn't see Rusty, but again, maybe I missed that.
and I haven't been keeping track. But Davide used to live here.
What's that song? Davide doesn't live here anymore. Try the supermarket next door.
I don't know that song, but
It wasn't Davide. I can't remember. That could be a song from the 70s as well.
you sing it well, Michael.
Yeah. Cultural references.
Yeah.
That's what
But-
folk tune in for.
But yeah, like a great occasion, a great time in the stadium.
Yeah. What I want to say, which is what I was trying to say on the halftime performance before we got completely sidetracked. I did mention this a little bit. I think the Whitecaps have done an absolutely fantastic job honouring this anniversary. And 50 years in the global world football maybe doesn't seem a lot. And they touched on that in the pre-game show, how Sarita mentioned some of the players from Europe's like 50 years, it isn't a lot. But in North American terms,
Massive.
that is absolutely huge. I know they haven't been continuous. There was the 86ers and everything like that. But the Whitecaps name has existed, whether as a playing thing or as a name, since 1974.
Yeah.
The Whitecaps with the standalone website, the features that they've done, bringing these alumni to this game, honouring not just 1974, which we're doing on the website, but the whole 5 decades of the Whitecaps, every aspect of it, the men's team, the women's team. I think they've done an absolutely tremendous job, and they need to be fully applauded for that. They've been packing the crowds in. They've obviously got a record-setting crowd this weekend. It's going to be beat in a couple of weeks' time again
totally.
as well. But this was a special occasion, and it was nice to see the players honoured, and I just thought they did a fantastic job. The team as well on the day put in a good effort. It's just a shame it couldn't have been the cherry on top with a 3 points at the end of it.
Yeah. In one sense, and I don't say this to sound negative, but it felt like some of those early MLS years where the Whitecaps had like these different opportunities to capture the imagination, right? Obviously, there's other things
With big crowds and
yeah. Well, there's other things in the sporting landscape right now that are obviously capturing people's imagination, but like, yeah, in those early years, I think they had some years where they had big opportunities and they always just kept to seem to like miss out on them. And I think the result and the game as a whole, like the play on the field as a whole, I think wasn't their best for sure. It was weird. Multiple people messaged me. They're like, "This is a terrible game," and I was like, "Yeah, it's unfortunate for them because they have so many people there who are so excited for this occasion."
I don't think it was a terrible game. There was some good football play. There was some exciting stuff. It's just they couldn't finish. And Brad Stuver is one of the best goalkeepers in MLS. And
maybe more so the second half than the first.
Second half, it certainly dipped a bit.
Because
you certainly had the feeling in that second half, this is not going to be our day.
Well, yeah, because it felt like Josh Wolf was happy for his side to have a low block, a mid block, whatever, and like
it was the lowest of low blocks. It was like there's like 11 men behind the ball at times.
It felt like a clean sheet was like, and they were going to get bonus points for it or something.
Well, I was so surprised. I was saying this to Alex and Har when we were watching the game. Like Austin, and we talked about this in the show last week, they've impressed me so much over the last few weeks. They came into this game 4 wins out of the last 5. They've been playing some really attractive football. They've been moving the ball around well. Diego Rubio, Driussi had been playing some really nice stuff. And they've been an attacking team, an attack-minded team. But they've come to BC Place with no attacking intention, it felt. Apart from, like, Rubio had their only shot on target 10 minutes in, shot to the near post, saved by Yohei Takaoka. And that was it. After that, like, Vanni Sartini said after the game that he could have subbed himself in for Yohei Takaoka.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have made any difference.
That's when he then said, "Oh yeah, Isaac's going to play on Tuesday."
Yeah, which I didn't like him giving that away, but I mean, they could probably have worked out that Yohi was going to get a rest for that game, I think. But I actually referenced Vanni's comments in the Whitecaps girls game today in League One because they beat TSS 7-0. And I said in the first half that Kylie Sanderlock, the Whitecaps goalkeeper, could have brought a book with her out there to read during the first half. So she then got subbed off at half time and they changed the keepers. And I said in the second half, obviously she really wanted to finish that book. But yeah, Yohi was just not troubled in this game at all. That is one of the easiest clean sheets he's ever going to have.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's not tons to talk about.
Well, there's a few
wise either, but
there's a few. Oh yeah, there's just a few big moments, right?
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about the first one. 19th minute. It looked like the Whitecaps had the lead, a deserved lead, a lead that you felt was coming. It was a ball sent in. Like, it starts with Sam Adekugbe breaking it up. A crossfield ball, crossfield pass by Austin, broken up at the halfway line by Sam Adekugbe. Plays it inside to Ryan Gold. He plays it back out to Sam. Sam sends the ball in. Ryan flicks it on. Don't know if he was trying to go for a goal and just didn't connect it. Kind of hits off Fafa Pico and Austin defender. Comes back to Ryan Gold. Lovely finish low. Past Stuver, who didn't see it. 1-0 Whitecaps. Mass celebrations. And they're checking the goal. They check all the goals. Then it went on. And it was a bit longer. And we saw the replay and I was like, what on earth is wrong with this? But the longer it went on, you knew something was up.
Yeah.
And then they called the referee over, goal chalked off for handball and Fafa Pico. So before I say anything, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, first off, I think, yeah, a really good team goal, like really good teamwork. And you saw, this is one of the times where we saw the positives of having an inverted winger in Sam Adekugbe out there, right? Where he's left-footed out on the right wing. He can cut it back onto his left and play. Sam's one of the better crossers on the team. And yeah, and the scramble happens or the bounce happens, falls, and it finds its way to the back of the net. In the way the rules are now, I understand why this is called back. Right? Like, I think the Whitecaps can feel maybe a little hard done by, but there's I wish Steve was here. Could we talk about this more in case I've missed some kind of updates or some tweaking or whatever to the laws of the game? But like now there's no interpretation, did he mean to handball it? Was, whatever. It's like,
yeah,
if it hits your arm in the box that leads to a goal, it's not a goal.
Well,
right? Or in the build-up, I should say.
I delved into some of the laws after this. And like, first thing I'll say is, if it hit his arm, yep, that is the rules and the goal is rightly chalked off. My biggest sort of grumble with this is because obviously it wasn't given on the pitch, and nothing that we saw in the stadium to me showed clearly that it hit Fafa's arm or hand. So maybe the referee happened to have a different angle that we've not seen, but from what the replay showed, I can't see that is a clear and obvious handball enough to overturn the on-field decision. That's my only complaint about this. If it hit his arm and it shows that it hit his arm, yep, definitely the goal should be chalked off. Yeah,
because the angles on the broadcast are, you understand that concern. And to me, the clear and obvious thing I think comes up with the second big VAR decision that we'll talk about later.
Yeah, what the rules say is, like, to determine a handball offence, it's the upper boundary of the arm is in line with the bottom of the armpit. So not every touch of a player's hand or arm is going to be an offence. But it is an offence if the player deliberately touches it, like moves his arm towards it, or if there's a goal scored that comes directly from the use of a hand or an arm, even if it is accidental. Yeah, so that's what this has been deemed as.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're right. The angles, I see why some could question the angles, but I see why it was called back. Like, ultimately, I don't think they can feel that hard done by.
No, I don't think they do. And my,
It was
my
a-
only grumble with it is I just don't clearly see, because it happens so fast that it's really, really hard to see if it exactly what it hit.
Yeah, but
But there might be an angle we haven't seen. So yeah.
but the angle the angles in the broadcast, there's a couple where it's like it feels like it can only have hit his arm. You mean you don't have like
yeah.
that, you don't have that super close up where his arm twitches or anything or whatever. I'm looking at one now actually. Like this arm. Yeah. Yeah, I can see why people would be frustrated with that, but it
I mean,
I'm-
to be fair, like right away, Alex Gangu Ruzic said, "Oh no, that's hit his hand."
yeah,
So
yeah.
he saw it, but it was frustrating. But I mean, by the
It's
letter of the
more-
law,
it-
it's the right decision.
It's made more frustration by how the game plays out, obviously.
Now, the referee, his actual name, which was listed in the Whitecaps report, is Marcos de Oliveira II. I can only hope the first is a lot better. And can we possibly get him next time around? Because the other big VAR decision comes in stoppage time. And I've heard I've spoken to a couple of folk about this and I've heard different takes on it. And so the ball comes in, Fafa, Alex Ring, Fafa Pico goes down in the box, appeals for a penalty, nothing given. The video assistant calls the referee over, feeling that an obvious mistake has been made on the field. But good old MDO the second sticks by his guns and there is no penalty given. Thoughts on this one?
So this one is the one, again, I think clear and obviously is the interesting part. I can't remember who they were because it was not local people, but so I don't know if they were Austin people or what, but the broadcasters, like during the broadcast, Mike, they said they felt it wasn't clear and obvious for the VAR people to ask him to even look at it. They felt like, look, no, this is.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, because they only call him over if
It's clear and
they
obvious.
really believe that the
Yes.
referee's made an error.
Yeah, and he comes back to them and says, "No, I got it right in this case."
Yeah, because like I can watch it from different angles, and it's like from one angle it doesn't look like a penalty, from one angle it does look like a penalty. Is that clear and obvious?
And that's what I think you got on the Apple broadcast, honestly, Michael. And I don't say this to be ethnocentric, but I think it was a British commentator who's like, "That's never a penalty. Why are they even having him look at this?" Right? You know, kind of with that kind of background and mentality towards football. Again,
Well, I mean,
don't
as
say
a Canadian,
I don't say that disparagingly at all. I just that's how it came across in his commentary.
yeah. Oh, don't trust those Brits. Us Canadians have to stick together, Zach.
And part of it, I think, Michael, like also, in addition to that, is I think they also feel like Fafa's gone down softly, right? So they feel like there's like Fafa feels contact, so he goes down, and that's why another reason
But
why.
there is also like Fafa's quite a light frame and Ring's not.
Yes, yeah,
And when I first saw it, I thought it was shoulder to shoulder. Then this is what is all wrong with video review now. You can slow it down, you can look at different angles, and it's like, oh look, if you slow it here, you see
the whole
his
point.
legs going into this, and
That's the whole point of video replay, Michael. Is to be
I
able
know
to
that's
see
why I
what
hate
actually
it.
happened.
It's like you're breaking things down that it's never going to be seen just in normal time. Like taking my Whitecaps glasses off in any game, I think referee on the pitch should be the person making the call, and that's what happens with video reviews. The referee's decision. The referee's the one making the final decision in all these calls, and it is going to be hard for a referee because I think like I know a few referees. I've had many chats with them over the years. Mostly me shouting abuse at them, but it's like normally, like referees question the decisions all the time, especially in games where there isn't video, and it's like, did I get that right? Like they'll go to bed after say a VMSL game, and they were like, did I get that call right? Was that the right decision? And you'll never know if there's no video.
But that's not modern day refereeing, right?
No.
Like there's two other things I think I need to say. One is I think if this call had gone the other way, the Whitecaps fan base that is livid over this would be absolutely livid if that was given against them. Okay, that's one thing. The other thing I would say is that, I think you tweeted this, or I think I saw you talking about this somewhere. it was poor player and match management for him to allow those Austin players to be so close to him as he's reviewing it on
Well,
VAR.
I am pretty certain that the
Yeah, he
rule
can go-
came in that if you go to the VAR screen, it's an automatic yellow card.
I think you're not wrong on that.
Because there was 3 of them and then Fafa went over. So there should have been 4 yellow cards issued. 2 were issued, but I think that was for the handbags between Fafa and the Austin player. But all of them should have been yellow carded. And it was very poor officiating. I don't know what the assistant referee was doing. Like, she should have been there telling them to go away. She was just standing there, letting them watch what was going on.
I think if all 4 players got yellow cards, that you would see little to none of that, in the future, right?
That's what they need to do. But I mean, going back to the challenge, you can see contact at the shoulder, at the torso, at the leg. So you just don't know what it is that sends Fafa to the ground, which I guess is why it's then not clear and obvious. And the position of the shoulder kind of makes it look that it's shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah, and I think the initial contact is, and this is where I think the ref sees it as shoulder to shoulder. And that's the initial contact, and I think that the people who think it's a penalty think it's shoulder to back.
Well, see, I think it's knee to back a leg.
No, okay, but yeah, regardless,
I think it was a foul. And I think it was a penalty.
Fafa's in the box. He feels contact. He goes down. I mean, it's the Meyer Bevan, Josh Hurt school of modern football, right? Like,
yeah. But I mean, it is what it is. It's not going to change now. I can't wait to see instant replay. Andrew Wiebe tweeted out he can't see in any way, shape, or form how that was not a penalty.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
I usually don't agree with him, but in this case, I do.
I disagree with him on lots, and I have over the years. I'll tell you stories sometime. But we missed one important, significant thing in between.
Oh, I'm coming back to that.
Back to that.
Yeah,
okay,
I want to finish by talking about the Stramash half
you
time as well. I love a good Stramash. Now, Colin Miller referred to it as a Stramash as well in the halftime show. Clearly a big Scottish thing. So I don't know what happened, but after the video review, Driussi had come over to the near side linesman and was pointing at the Whitecaps bench and signalling, like writing in his hand, that someone needed to get booked. And the linesman was like, yeah, just go away. So then as they went off, I don't know if Driussi said something to the Whitecaps bench and they responded, if someone from the Whitecaps bench said something, but Driussi lost the plot and had to get held back. And we were talking at half-time that it's at least a yellow, and it would have probably been harsh to give him a red, but it's like he came off the pitch and went to the bench and had to be held back. So I don't know. He's a lucky boy. No one was talking about. We couldn't get out of anyone what happened in the incident, so we still don't know. But that was an interesting one. But yeah, the other big thing that happened in the first half, sadly, another injury to Sam Adekugbe, and we don't know at the time of recording this in the early hours now of Monday morning as to how bad the injury is. At first, I thought he had re-aggravated his knee injury, but it was quickly confirmed at halftime by the Whitecaps comms team that it was a calf injury, which is still not great, but at least it's a lot better than possibly re-aggravating the knee. He was out on the pitch after the game, just in a hoodie walking around. He did have a limp, but they are going to assess it this week and see what it is. Hopefully, it doesn't mean that he's going to miss too much time for Whitecaps or for Canada as well, with Copa America coming up. But heartbreaking for him. He looked really, really upset as he came off.
Yeah. Feel for Sam, as he's had a number of these.
He was starting to look like he was really good in that first half. He was starting to get his game back up to what we know it can be.
Yeah. I saw someone say that it was Driussi had some issue with Laborda. Laborda had been saying something or insinuating something, or...
Funnily enough, in Tom's photos, the first player that I saw was Laborda, and in my mind I was like, ooh, wonder what might have been said.
Maybe that's where I saw it. Maybe I thought it was you who said that. Then maybe
I didn't say it, I just thought that. So unless you're in my head, which if you are, Zach, I pity you, man. But yeah, so Sam's out, just adding to the Whitecaps' injury woes. Damir Krylak missed this game. He was actually seen before the match walking around in a walking boot, which is not great.
Not
He got
good.
injured at training. So that is a big blow, because one of the things I thought that this game showed is
Yeah.
there was not a lack of depth in certain areas. Like, you looked at that bench and you looked at who could come on. Pedro Vite, it's like, yeah, he can do stuff. Levante, I'm a big fan of what Levante can bring, but he's not been bringing it to MLS. And I don't think he's the first option that Whitecaps should be having now as an attacking sub. But I don't know who that would be. With Krylak out as well, there isn't anyone else. It's not even really anyone in WFC2 that you'd think, oh, they're going to get the call up, because the strikers there are playing on an island right now because there's just no creative midfield giving them any service in these games. So the strikers in WFC2 are struggling just now. So they need to address that. They need to bring someone in.
In this situation, though, did you feel that Johnson should have been given a little bit more time than he was, seeing as he was like the only real attack? Like,
yes and no.
forward attacking
Yes,
option?
because he's got the pace.
Yeah.
And the thought of having him and Fafa running that tired Austin defence is exciting. But the problem is he hasn't been doing it. He hasn't been performing. So giving him the extra time, I think you were probably better sticking with what you had and just bringing him on late on.
Because pace is something that the Whitecaps currently don't have a great deal of, right? Even with a quick player like Fafa, he's not. I don't know. He's not the type of player who's going to constantly stretch you. I don't feel like he can. He'll make some good runs and whatever, but they don't have that blistering pace of anyone who a team's like always going to be concerned about getting beyond them, right? And so, yeah, I would have thought like Johnson would have got 10, 15 minutes maybe to try and change the game.
I mean, it's quite
I
scary just
texted
how.
you, right? When you were like, "There's no options," like, what about
Yeah.
Johnson? And it was like, I forget, would he get less than 10 minutes or whatever?
Just under 10, yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, we've talked about how this is the best Whitecaps team in the MLS era, and it has got depth, but it's just taken a few injuries
yeah,
to now look at this and you're like, ooh.
yeah,
And some players that you thought were good depth that maybe haven't, like Levante, Berhalter, that maybe haven't quite hit the levels that we
Kicked
thought they
on,
were
yeah.
going to hit this, and pushed on really the way that we hoped. So I think they do still need to be a little bit busy and maybe try and get some trades done. You're not telling me there's not a team in the MLS that wouldn't want to take Javane Brown. It's what they might want to give up for him, because we obviously need some attacking pieces right now. This DP spot is still open. If there is a change in the summer, that there could be 4 DPs or extra under 23 initiative players. The fans are clamouring that this DP spot should get filled. Now, if Axel goes out and fills that in the summer and says this is what we're waiting for, I think that will appease the fans. But if the summer window closes and there isn't a DP, that really... And you know my thoughts on a DP. I don't care if it's a big name or not. We just need to get a difference maker. I'd rather have a DM than a DP. It's like that difference maker is what the Whitecaps are needing. If you can get a DP striker that can fill the back of the net, Brian White, Ryan Gold, so much is expected of them. You've got to have somebody else there. Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're coming up to such a busy spell of games. It's 2 game weeks for the rest of this month.
Yeah.
Between Canadian Championship and MLS action. There's the next 3 MLS matches are on the road. It's LA, Seattle, Colorado. 3 tough Western teams. Now, we're playing great on the road. Maybe it should be a case now that we just want to play all our games on the road. Maybe another pandemic hits and we can just get on the road all the time. We're going to be MLS champions.
Michael, if another pandemic hits, there's going to be other questions that need to be answered.
Have I released the bats?
No, that's not the one I'm thinking of.
Oh, okay. Have I been spreading myself around too much? No, it's not that either. But, I mean, the next 4 games, including the trip to Calgary on Tuesday, is on the road as well. So we're not dropping as many points there. But I mean, what is up with all these points getting dropped at home? It's another 2 dropped. If you want to be a top title contender, if you want to be a top 4 team, you can't be dropping all these points at home. That's basically what it boils down to.
True. In principle, you're right. I think Vanni's counter to that is, well, we've also made a bunch of them on the road, right?
But that's not going to get you top 4.
Exactly.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting week around MLS West. Some good results for the Whitecaps. I mean, they may only have taken a point, but it didn't hit them too hard in the standings.
They got some help from their fellow Canadians in the standings, didn't they? At least the one game.
Well, kind of. I mean, Dallas aren't really.
Right, they're not.
They're not troubling. But if you look at the West just now, the Whitecaps finished the weekend still in the top 4, but dropped down to 4th. RSL continuing. I watched the highlights of their match against KC, and Chicho Arango, another goal for him. And RSL deserved winners in this. Easily could have won that one by more than one goal. But Minnesota are flying right now. Yeah. I watched, again, before I headed off to the Whitecaps game, I was going to go to the League One game, Burnaby and Unity, but because it's been such a busy week, I thought, stay in and just kind of watch the MLS 360 roundup again. So a lot of the Western teams were in action in the early games, which I thought was quite interesting. But Minnesota just really turned it on at Atlanta. I mean, going to Atlanta is a tough place to go. Leaving with 3 points is very impressive. And once again, it's the player whose name I struggle to pronounce, Tani Oluwase, scoring on the hour mark to basically be the winner. It put Minnesota 2-0 up, but they played some really nice stuff. Atlanta got a late goal to make it interesting towards the end. But Minnesota now moved up to 2nd in the standings and playing some nice stuff. Portland went down to a 2-0 loss to Charlotte, and Charlotte were the better team in that. Portland are a mixed bag this year. I don't know what to make of them. It feels like there's a good team in there waiting to break out, but they're just not. Whether that's Phil Neville's management or what, I don't know. But I don't know, something's going on there. I watched bits and then I watched the highlights in full of the San Jose LAFC game. Did you see any of that?
No, not that one.
Oh, I mean, you'd think, well, first of all, this game was played at Levi's Stadium.
Oh, right, yeah.
And really good crowd in, early kickoff. I think they might want to start moving things to there. Wow. San Jose were just fantastic in this. They took the lead, a nice goal with Rodriguez 5 minutes in. Pellegrino made it 2 in the 55th. A Buanga own goal just before the hour mark made it 3-0 to San Jose. And although LAFC pulled one back, like the Quake comfortably held on, which was nice for them because it's also their 50th anniversary weekend as well, even though their first game was away in Vancouver 50 years ago. But I mean, that was good. And then Dallas just got spanked by TFC, or in particular, Bernadeschi, who that was his best game as a TFC player.
Wouldn't it be better if he scored the penalty as opposed to scoring on the rebound?
But a goal's a goal, and it looks better on the stats that it wasn't a penalty. If you're looking at it, like we've always, Pedro Morales, how many penalties did he score? Bernadeschi, that's the way to do it. Bounce off the keeper, follow in, tuck it away. TFC, after that, they started well, they dipped, and then they've kind of started to pick up again. They're kind of motoring a little bit in the East.
Yeah, the Herdman effect.
Yeah, Houston and St. Louis played out a 0-0 draw. I haven't seen anything of that. When I saw it was 0-0, I didn't really bother watching it. And then Colorado went to New York today and came away with an impressive 2-0 win. Another team that is just keeping getting it done.
Yeah.
And then I watched the highlights when I got home tonight of Seattle LA. I'd actually PVR'd the game on TSN. Yeah. Now, have you watched it?
No, I just saw the result and I was like,
okay,
I don't need,
because I'd be curious to see whether it was TELUS or whether it's TSN that fucked this up. But I had NASCAR. I didn't have the game.
Oh, they did it with something for F1 for me this weekend.
I just watched the highlights on YouTube, so hadn't known what the score was, but I was really pissed off. But then when it ended up being 0-0, there was really nothing happened in that game at all. It was, I mean, LA huffed and puffed. Seattle had a couple of chances, but 0-0 was a pretty fair result. 3 0-0 draws with the all Western Conference matchups this weekend, which is quite interesting because the goals have been flying over the course of the season.
There's NASCAR on my PVR with a note that says, I think what happened was it got changed on ESPN, because there's a note saying the Galaxy Sounders game is on ESPN2 or Fox 2 or what? Yeah, maybe it's Fox. No, it's ESPN, I think. That they got screwed by their relationship with ESPN, because my PVR is just filled with NASCAR for that game.
As it turned out, I didn't miss too much. But that was the West. As I said, RSL, top of the pile on 21 points, Minnesota on 20, the Galaxy on 19, Vancouver on 18, with a game in hand on 2 of the 3 teams above them, not Minnesota. Then you've got Colorado on 5th, also on 18, Austin on 16, and LAFC in 7th on 15, Houston on 14, St. Louis on 13, below the playoff line, Kansas on 11, Seattle on 10, Portland on 10, Dallas on 8, and San Jose going up in the points, but still bottom of the heap on 7. And it's interesting because, again, Kansas, Seattle, Portland, I fancy those 3 teams to finish above the playoff line. So you're looking at 3 teams that's going to drop out. So Houston and St. Louis would be my 2 favourites there. And you wonder who the other one's going to be. But I've been very impressed with RSL. And it's weird to say this, but I've kind of got a bit of a soft spot for them, just because they feel like a team that's just always punching above their weight. They're an unsexy team. They're not a big spending team. But they uncover some amazing talent in this league.
Yeah.
But that is it for our MLS chat. It's not it for our Whitecaps chat, though, because we're going to turn our attention to the Canadian Championship next, and we'll be back with that after we take you back to 1974.
Hi, I'm Ryan Gold, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
Well, it's Friday night and I need a fight. If she don't spread, I'm gonna bust her head. The guy's gone mad cause his chick's been had. What can we do when there's 4 of you? Sweet FA, never gonna make it. Sweet FA, people think we fake it. Sweet FA, now we're gonna take it. Try to pull me out like a roustabout. Gonna spend my bread, then I'll kick your head. You're just my size, but if you're so wide, see the chick in black, maybe she'll come back. Sweet FA, never gonna make it. Sweet FA, people think we fake it. Sweet FA, now we're gonna take it.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. Brought to you in partnership with recoveryfamilylaw.ca. And kicking off this part, we've taken you all the way back to 1974. English band Sweet, the glam rockers, with their album Sweet Fanny Adams. And that is the title track, Sweet FA, the 6th song on the album, the first one on side B, in the old vinyl days where you had to turn things over, making a comeback, of course. The album was released on April 26th, 1974. There wasn't any new releases singles-wise this week, so I thought I'd have a look at the album charts, and I thought I would pick that one, because Sweet FA of course, means, oh, aren't the Football Association sweet? Maybe
my
not. This week, elsewhere music-wise in 1974, the number one song in Canada and the US was Grand Funk with Do the Locomotion With Me, and ABBA's Waterloo, after winning the Eurovision Song Contest, had hit the number one spot in the UK. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about 50 years ago, Whitecaps land, 1974, and of course it was the very first ever match for Vancouver Whitecaps as they took on San Jose Earthquakes at Empire Stadium, Sunday, May 5th, 1974. So the scene was set. Over 17,000 fans packed into Empire Stadium on a very wet Sunday afternoon. The rain poured down, but they were there to see history being made. Long story short, the Whitecaps and San Jose played out a 1-1 draw after 90 minutes, but under the newly introduced tie-break system in the North American Soccer League, the game went to a penalty shootout, and the Whitecaps lost 7-6. That's the shortened version of what happened. I want to give you just a little bit of a flavour of what the press reported the following day, Monday, May 6th. Now, in the Vancouver province, Jeff Cross, the storied soccer reporter that many of you will have seen all his stuff that he did in our coverage of the 1979 Soccer Bowl win, he wrote a piece for the province under the headline, Heartbreaking Start for Whitecaps, Foiled on Fateful Penalty Kicks. Cross wrote, Vancouver Whitecaps will go through a lot of heartache and frustration in their North American Soccer League career, but none will match the misery of the new NASL team following its debut at Empire Stadium Sunday. The young Whitecaps dominated play throughout most of the game, played in the pouring rain before 17,343 fans, but after winding up in a 1-1 tie after the regulation 90 minutes, they lost on the NASL's newly introduced tie-break system of penalty kicks. Under the tie-break system, the two teams take turn to fire 5 penalty kicks at the opposing goalkeeper, starting with a sequence of 5 and then going into sudden death kicks. After the first series of 5, each team scored 3 and missed 2. Then it got to 6-6 before San Jose's Ernie Racine missed 1. That gave Vancouver a chance to win it if their next penalty kick went into the net, but Brian Budd shot wide. Then Mark Demling scored for San Jose to make it 7-6, and the Whitecaps' Brian Gant shot wide to end the game. Officially going in the books as a 2-1 San Jose victory. In the actual 90-minute game itself, San Jose had taken the lead just 3 minutes in, their Mexican midfielder Manny Hernandez scoring with their first shot of the game. Neil Ellett drew the Whitecaps level in the 37th minute, picking up a loose ball 18 yards out and firing it into the bottom right corner. Glenn Johnson getting the assist, and Neil Ellett writing himself into Vancouver soccer folklore with the Whitecaps' first ever goal in the club's history. Whitecaps had dominated the match but just couldn't get the winning goal. I want to read you the opening of Dan Stinson's article now in the Vancouver Sun the following day after the game. And this is going to sound a little bit all too familiar. Dan wrote, well, it's like the experts keep saying, Vancouver gets the fans, the opposition, the points. Victory and defeat, old boy, victory and defeat. Whitecaps got the city back into North American Soccer League Sunday, and in typical Vancouver sporting fashion, it was on a losing note. So amongst the 17,343 fans in attendance at Empire Stadium were over 10,000 minor soccer players. As I mentioned on an earlier show, Whitecaps owner Herb Capozzi had given all the the local youth soccer players in Vancouver the chance to turn along and get free tickets. Gave out, I think, 15,000 overall, but just about 10,000 actually turned up for the match. In the post-game, head coach Jim Easton was frustrated and said, certainly we did enough to win, but we didn't, and it goes down in the books as a defeat. Our boys came back in fine style after giving up that goal in the first few minutes, and I don't believe San Jose had a shot on our goal in the entire second half. But the result will be an education for our youngsters. Now they know what pro soccer is all about and what they have to do to win. I was most proud of them for fighting back the way they did, but boy, it's frustrating to lose like that. When you look back now at the Whitecaps' 50th anniversary match against Austin at the weekend, it was perhaps fitting that Austin turned up, didn't really trouble Yohei Takaoka. The Whitecaps ended up with a draw, were frustrated that their possession and play didn't get the win. At least this one didn't go to a penalty shootout. Another interesting thing to note about the post-game reaction to this game was one of the regular sports columnists in the Vancouver Sun, Jim Kearney, wrote a big column about the whole day and the whole experience, touching on the injustice of penalty shootouts and how he's not sure soccer fans would really like that, and just talked about the overall use of gimmicks in the NASL. But the razzmatazz style familiar in North American sports, questioning whether it would catch on in soccer and get the soccer fans out. Well, of course, from those looking in at from afar, that kind of North American razzmatazz style was very much mocked in the 70s. Thankfully, although some aspects of it might still be around, that has long gone from modern day football. But that was This Week in Whitecaps Land, 1974. So from the past, right up to the present, looking ahead to the future, because the Whitecaps are straight back in action on Tuesday night as they head east to Spruce Meadows, where Zach has just come back from, to take on Cavalry FC in the Canadian Championship quarter-finals. It's going to be a fantastic occasion. The third meeting in the competition between the two teams. The Whitecaps famously lost over two legs in 2019. Cavalry FC, after a 0-0 draw at Spruce Meadows, coming to BC Place and turning the Whitecaps over. The Whitecaps got revenge a couple of years later, but they needed penalties to do it after a 1-0 draw. Now it's the third meeting, the rubber match, if you will, between the two. We'll get into that shortly. But Zach, as we touched on at the start, you headed to Calgary. You must just love Calgary. It's the zoo, isn't it? Because the zoo is fantastic.
No, I had no time for the zoo.
You've always got time for the zoo. Did you go to Drumheller?
No, I've been there before, yes, because I know someone who's from there, but no.
The Drumheller Museum was, like, I spoke about this when I went in 2019. It was one of the things on my bucket list. I always wanted to go to Drumheller and the museum, and it exceeded my expectations, the museum, as to what was there. Drumheller itself, not as much, because we couldn't go on the tours because there'd been thunderstorms and it was uneven ground. But we got to see a bit of it and it was cool to see it. But the museum, for me, one of the best museums in the world.
A dear friend of mine who was a few years older than me married a girl from Drumheller, and their wedding was in, I want to say, Rosebud, Alberta. And so came out for the wedding. I was like an usher. I think it was like 18, 19. So that's the only time I've been to Drum. So I didn't really explore too much.
Yeah. I mean, I've always loved dinosaurs, always loved fossils. At one point when I was at high school, I had considered being an archaeologist because history was my best subject as well. Did you know that Wayne Rooney is a paleontologist?
Oh, no, don't say it. Please don't say it. I think I know what you're going to say. Oh, my goodness.
He loves exploring old bones.
Oh, my God.
Never gets old. He's just a fat granny shagger. Fat granny shagger.
Oh, Michael.
But yeah, your trip.
How do you follow that up? Okay.
With your trip.
Yeah. No, it was great.
You ate dumplings?
I did. That was...
They look good.
Yeah, not as good as the meat pie. I mean, the hand
See,
pie.
I think that's more a pasty than a pie, but
Y-
it still looks
yeah,
good.
they call them
I
hand
would
pies.
devour it, yes.
Yeah, I had
I
one
would devour
snake.
it like Wayne Rooney in an old folks' home.
Oh, you're killing me. Oh man. Are you? Anyways, it was a great, like a 10, 20, 10, 30, whatever flight out of Abbotsford, landed, got a rental car. I went with the Harleys. So I was the third
Oh,
wheel. with the
Harley
Harley.
Davidsons.
No,
Oh,
Andrew and Adrian. And so yeah, we got a rental car and then drove around, checked out a few things, got some tabletop items for my son for some of his tabletop board games that he plays, which was sweet. And he was stoked about.
cool.
Yeah, so just hung out, and then we went to the stadium, and it's they don't have an away supporter section anymore, and we were a little bit concerned about the potential for precipitation. So we actually got
And there was a
tickets where
bigger crowd for this one than the previous game
Yes.
as
Oh
well.
yeah.
It was a
Yeah.
really good
Oh yeah.
turnout.
So we got tickets in the main stand, but we never went to the main
Oh, yeah,
stand.
because
We
it had
went
been
to
snowing. We haven't touched on that. It was
yeah.
snowing in the build up to this game, and it was
Yeah,
hidden behind the
we were
advertising boards.
we were very worried because our flights were non-refundable.
Yeah.
So
I know we were
so
chatting about that before you went. Tommy must think, because that's 2 games in 2 weeks you've been there, he must be like, wow, AFTN's raking the money in. They can afford to send Zach to 2 games out in Calgary.
he had nothing but kind things to say about you, Michael.
Oh, that's nice.
He's
Even though I said I hope he gets beat on Tuesday.
yes, even though you said that. I told him you said that. But that's the thing. I like Tommy Wheeldon Jr., whether you agree with him or disagree with him, or your team has a match against his and you don't like how it went or how they treated your players or whatever. Uh, just have like a ton of respect and a lot of time for him. He's always a joy to talk to, and yeah, obviously he's extremely engaging and in the way he talks about the game, both like tactically and philosophically, and from the larger, what's going on in the game in Canada and around the world. So yeah, just have a lot of time for him. It was really great. Again, thanks to Hannah from Cavalry. It was really great to be a part of the post-match press conference there, like I was last week, and got to hang out with AFTN's man on the ground, Scott Strasser, and hang out and ask some questions. It's a great stadium.
I love it. I really wish I was going on Tuesday. I should have booked a flight right away. It's gone up in price now. I am commentating at 3:30 on Wednesday. It was going to be a long day and then have to do that the next day. So decided not to. I'm probably going to regret it once the game starts on Tuesday, and I'll be like, oh, I wish I was there, because I think it's a lovely little ground.
If you
The
don't
pitch is
have,
looking even shitter than it did for that Canadian Championship game, though, I've got to say. That's going to be a leveler.
if you don't have points to get there, or lots of money laying around to fly there or whatever, I can't. It's not like Seattle where I'm like, oh, you got to get in your car, you got to go whatever. But if you
Yeah,
have,
well,
if you
we were actually going to go through and spend like a few days there, because I thought we were going to be doing the altitude game as the game of the week or at the weekend, but they're doing it in the midweek one instead. And I was like, oh, I can't go now.
Here's the thing: if you do have the time, and you have some people, and you have a vehicle, or you can, I guess, rent one for a reasonable price. Like our gas on the way out there last week. Now gas has gone up a little bit.
Yeah, but what were you paying?
I think
I
we
filled
paid-
up for 196 today, and I was like, woohoo, which is like crazy.
No, well, the whole trip I think was like 250, 260, $265. And there was 4 of us, right? So it's very, very, very
That's
reasonable.
good.
Because we drove, went to the game, got the car, drove back. Now maybe a lot of people don't want to do that, have that kind of adventure, but if you can, if you love the Whitecaps or you love the Voyageurs Cup or both, go do it next Tuesday. You'll have a ton of fun. You just need a reliable vehicle, and you need multiple people willing to drive so that you can kind of
Yeah, and a biggish vehicle, my little Ford Fiesta.
yeah
On a one-day road trip, it's not good. It's not good for trips down the Oregon coast with just me, Caitlin, and the dog.
We had like 4 people in like a smaller SUV kind of vehicle. It was great, but no, you are absolutely right. It is, the 4 grounds that I mean, the 3 away grounds that I enjoy the most, like or I think that are the best to go to, are I've never been to Halifax, and the ground is not great, but the where it is and the atmosphere and everything around the game is great. So I really want to go to Wanderers Ground, and I think that's an amazing one. Starlight, I think, is really neat. And again,
Yeah.
not everything's perfect about it, but you need to go there, and you need to go there and take in a game or multiple games there. And then Spruce Meadows, it's not if you're a person who's like, yeah, I'm gonna fly out there, I'm gonna take like some public transit to get to the game. Unless unless you consider Uber public transit, it's not very fun. But because it's way down there in the south of the city, there's all this land and whatever, and it's on this legendary equestrian, place where this is my third time visiting there, second time for a game, and it's just there's something magical about there, right? Like, and
I would say though, make sure you update your GPS, because when I was there in 2019, mine's hadn't been, and when I was trying to get back to the hotel, it looked like I was just driving in the middle of nowhere. I was on a motorway, but my GPS had me in a field.
Yeah, you need to be careful with GPSs. But no, it's magical. It's a great little place.
It's a magical place. You'll find your way there.
The grandstand, the main stand there, it looks more permanent than it is. It's essentially like a pop-up. It's essentially what's at Willoughby. Oh yeah, it's essentially what's at Willoughby, but it's covered. It has a roof and it has like
whatever. I thought it was permanent.
No, it's just scaffolding under there. So, but they make it look good. They make it look.
I mean, when I went, I walked all the way around it, took pictures of all the statues and stuff. It's like when I was there as well. It was a gorgeous sunny day, so it really set it off.
Oh, the weather actually was good all the time.
I mean, when you look at I want to see the Halifax Stadium as well. I've no interest at all to go to York Stadium or to Valor's or to Forges. It's like they're just big stadiums with no interest.
I've been to Forges for a national team game, and I'm scheduled to go for a league match this year, which is not exciting for the stadium, but is obviously exciting for the occasion and the opportunity to visit family for me. But no, Spruce Meadows is great, and it's going to be a great place for the Whitecaps to go next week. Talking about the pitch, Tommy spoke about the pitch. I asked him about, the kind of big question is, is it an advantage for the MLS sides in the two legs? And he said, yeah, it is. But he talked about, playing at home. And then at some point he mentioned like because snow fell again this week, right? They didn't practice on it. And actually I sent you a picture. I was like,
yeah, they weren't doing the pre-match warm-ups on it.
Most of the pre-match warm-up was like on the grassy space behind the benches, which is for some other part of the horseshoe or whatever. So they used the horsey area to warm up, and then they slowly kind of came on the pitch a little bit, and then obviously played the match on it. But he said we have not trained on it, and then he went out of his way to say, no, there's like sort of, I don't forget his language, but it's almost like, look, unlike the ball thing last week, there's no conspiracies here. We didn't have any extra time on the pitch, kind of thing. It was really.
I should go on the pre-game call tomorrow and say, can we clarify what balls are being used for this game, or are you going to pull any switcheroonies again?
Send me the link.
Because when I sent out the picture from TSS training on Tuesday of the picture of the balls, someone said to me, I so wanted to like that, and I was like hovering over my phone going, will I like it, and I thought better of it. I won't say who it was, but yeah. But I've seen clarified his comments and that he wasn't trying to make excuses, but he has got a valid point. But we won't go into all that again. Let's just focus on Caps Cav here.
Yeah.
So let's hear a little bit from both the gaffers just now. First up, we'll hear from Vanni Sartini, and this is some audio from stuff I asked him after the Austin game on Saturday and on the pre-game call on Monday. And then we'll also hear a little bit from Tommy Wheeldon Jr. answering your question, Zach, after Friday's game. First big important question for you. Have you double-checked what balls are getting used tomorrow?
Yes, we actually trained with both the balls that we can, I would say, expect for tomorrow. The one that they used in the league, and the one that they used against Vancouver, because it was a little different, was the Nike one that they used in Champions League that they used in the Canadian Championship. So we tried our best to be prepared. and because especially for shooting and for goalkeeping, the ball counts because the trajectory can change.
Vanni, you're back at it in less than 72 hours in the cup competition, and what's a crazy month of games, 2 games a week. Have you planned out what you're expecting in every game, or can you not really do that?
A little bit. But then life always kind of change your plans, sometimes beautifully. I was kind of 20 years ago. I didn't want to go out because I was very tired. It was raining. A friend called me. I went out and I met my wife, and then it was a life and a turn of life that was unexpectedly beautiful. In a much less important way, unfortunately, the 2 little injury for Damir and Sam already made us changing a little bit of the plan that we were trying to do for Tuesday. The thing that I want to say is that the Canadian Championship is a very, very big objective for us. It's not that because we play a CPL team. You've seen last week, the League One team winning and almost winning with TSS. So the Canadian Championship is a very big trophy for us, and we can make history, winning for the 3rd time in a row. So we will go with a very competitive team to Calgary, but we'll do some rotation for sure.
What have you made of Cavalry from stuff that you've seen? This is the 3rd time the clubs have crossed paths. You'd mentioned when the draw was made you liked the 2 legs. Do you still feel that way?
Yes, I like the 2 legs because if you go to play against Cavalry in Calgary in the single leg, is going to be very dangerous. The word that you could tell about them, they're intense. They're very intense. They're probably the most intense team in the CPL. They love to fight. They're very Albertans, that's like and they're very hard and so it's gonna be like we need to let away our soft British Columbia attitude and go there and fight too, because if not, it's gonna be a problem.
The Spruce Meadows pitch is looking quite rough just now, and I know for Friday's game the players couldn't even do pre-match warm-ups on it. Do you see that as a bit of a leveller? Is that maybe going to change a little bit of how you play your style?
We'll see. I saw in the last game there was snow on the side of the pitch, so it's we'll see if the pitch is going to be a factor or not. It's not that we're going to change the way of play. It's the same way that the field, to be honest, is a little bit of a factor when we play BC plays, that the ball goes a little bit slower and the turf is not, if not a natural grass. So I think that it will be natural that there will be a little bit, I would say, advantage because they know the condition of the pitch much better than us. But at the same time, we need to be ready to play in every condition.
This is the first of 4 straight matches on the road, and we know how well the team's doing on the road right now. Normally, you maybe wouldn't relish having such a spell, and like home is where the heart is, everything like that. But with the way that the home form is just now, are you quite pleased to get on the road? And what do you put down the difference now between how you're winning on the road but not taking points at home?
I think the difference has been kind of, I don't want to use the word luck, but, very limited. I think we had some games at home, like Charlotte, like the last game, we should have won. So, Austin, that we could have won, and a game away like San Jose, for example, that if we would have tied, no one would have said that it would have been a scandal because at minute 75, they didn't create anything. We didn't create too much. So there was. So I think it has been more like literally the final product that has been a little different between home and away. I'm really pleased of the performance that we had away home. I think the other thing is that we played. Salt Lake at home, that is the best team in the league basically now in point per game, and the Galaxy, that are another very good team. So also sometimes the schedule helps or not, but I'm pleased of the way that we played both home and away. And in terms of tomorrow, I'm just pleased that uh, the game is going to be hard and everything, but at least the flight is going to be in the except going to Pacific, the shortest possible. So it's not a bad. It would have been like harder to go, I don't know, to Hamilton or to Ottawa when having a longer flight.
I just want to know your thoughts on the two-legged Canadian Championship for the Voyageurs Cup match that you have coming up against the Whitecaps. You've obviously beaten an MLS side. You've beaten the Whitecaps before on two legs, but I'm wondering if you could talk about that, and especially, do you feel that the two-leggedness gives the MLS sides an advantage?
Should do. They're stronger, deeper, more established, played the season a lot earlier than us, so they should have all the advantage. We certainly are the underdog, but we've done it before. It's not to say we can't do it again. And what I've loved about this Canadian Championship, it's actually highlighting the pyramid that's being grown here in Canada, and I don't think we're proud enough of it. So, the League One system that's coming through, credit to TSS Rovers giving Pacific a game, credit to Saint Laurent doing exactly the same against Halifax, to now we go up against MLS sides. I think we should be applauding it because this is the magic of the Cup. It brings the whole country together, has talking points, and I'm excited that we're in the hat for this game, and I look forward to welcoming Whitecaps here. We're going to make it as difficult as we can for them, but we know that they're in a team in form, so we respect that, but we're not scared of that.
The gaffers, Vanni Sartini and Tommy Wheeldon Jr. there. It's an interesting one. Cavalry's not fully firing on all cylinders yet. But
that was their first league win of the season.
Yeah. They're not giving up many goals, though. I mean, Forge put a couple past them, but Tobias Waszewski, whose name I keep butchering, is really living up to what I thought he was going to be when he's been with some other teams in the CPL and hadn't quite hit those heights. He seems to be in a rich vein of form right now.
I think I said to you, didn't I? I said, I hope this is a player that Vancouver FC gets when, Edmonton died. Of all the players that could have, I love Gabby Bitar, but of all the players from Edmonton that were available after, I thought this is the one we should get. And yeah.
I mean, he's playing well, and obviously Marco Carducci had a couple of big saves. VFC went down to a 3-1 loss to that game on Friday and just didn't look too great out there, I have to say. He lost another couple of players to injury as well, and it was good to see Tommy Powell and Elijah Ba get their debuts.
Yeah, there were some great debuts. Grady played.
Mateo Campagna as well, of course.
Campagna. Grady played great when he came on.
Oh, and Grady, yep.
It felt like every time he got the ball, Cavalry we just fouled him.
But he was given like the little push in the back. He got into it with, who did he get into it with?
It wasn't Diaz.
It was Rodriguez.
Rodriguez, okay.
Yeah, it was Rodriguez he got into it with, yeah.
So, interesting thing about Grady, I forgot to mention this earlier. So we're going to get on our plane or whatever, and there's a dude wearing like a Vancouver, the new Vancouver kit, a Vancouver hat, and we kind of had this like, okay, they're going to the game, right? They got to be going to the game. And then we were like, cynically, one of us was like, maybe they don't even know there's a game. They just have the jersey and the hat. They're just traveling. But anyways, that same person was on our return flight home, and we met them at the stadium because it was Grady's dad.
See, you should have said potato.
No, actually, he joined them already. I think he went with them to Lisbon for the Irish camp.
Oh, nice. Yeah, he is a star in the making. He did not look out of place when he came on, and it's going to be interesting what the Whitecaps do for this one, because there's definitely going to be some rotation.
Yeah.
So you feel Laborda's going to come in at the back, and I think we'll probably see Bilal Halbouni get a run out as well. I feel Vanni, he said he's going to go with a strong lineup for this one. Who's going to lead the line? I mean, is he going to go very Canadian? We know Isaac Boehmer's getting the start. Does Levante get the start? With a knock to Krylak now, I don't know that I would risk Brian White to start this one.
No, he won't.
And Fafa coming back from the injury, I don't know that I would risk him either. So you're probably going to see a lot of the Canadians. Wouldn't be surprised to see Halbouni. Ryan Raposo will get the start as well. You can be sure of that. Ali Ahmed, I mean, he can run. Probably Berhalter will come in. I'd maybe keep Kubis in, just because the team loses something quite drastically when he's not there. But I mean, I wouldn't be averse to a midfield three of Berhalter, Viti, and Kubis, but not sure what you get offensively and creatively from that. But I could see Viti maybe getting the number 10 role. Of course, a lot of folk are going to be listening to this after the game, and they're going to be like, that's complete bollocks. They played his full first team. But
no, that's not happening. With Bomer, we know that's not happening.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Man for man, the Whitecaps are clearly better.
Well, yeah, but
it's a cup tie and it's two legs.
I don't know if it was this press conference or it was the one on Wednesday. Vanni's already come out and said, the post-match from the Austin game, or I think it was his midweek call. He's already come out and said, because of the two legs, this allows us to do some rotation as heavily as we think we can or should for the first game. And if it doesn't go well, then that affects how we do that. Or he said if it goes really well, then maybe we heavily rotate for both of them. So I'd be shocked if it's not like at least five guys are kind of rotating.
And of course, away goals rule ridiculously in effect.
Oh, it's in effect, right? Sorry, it's the rest of the world where it's got.
Yeah, everybody else is getting rid of it. Well, we're bringing it back into two-legged ties.
It's like the Montreal Impact want that, I'm sure.
It's
CF Montreal.
Well, CS Saint Laurent got 2 away goals, so even if that hadn't gone to penalties and there was the away goals rule in effect for that, they'd have got through. Actually, so would TSS. Damn. I wouldn't be surprised if this first leg ends up as a draw.
I would.
Oh?
You think a draw?
1-1. If there is heavy rotation by the Whitecaps.
I still think I think Vanni's players are going to seize the opportunity that they're given. Whoever they are, Bomer and whoever else, are going to seize the opportunity, and I think they're going to perform well. And I think it's going to be something like 2-1 to the Whitecaps, or maybe 2-0. But no, I think Cavs will get a goal. So I think something like 2-1 in this leg. Having said that, I think even if the Whitecaps win by a goal in the opening leg, I think that doesn't mean that they automatically go through in the second leg.
That's it for the Whitecaps chat. We're going to be back talking Canada and the search for the men's head coach after we bring you the first song from our new album of the month.
I'm Isaac Bomer. I'm listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM, brought to you in partnership with Recovery familylaw.ca. And kicking off this part, it's a new month. You know what that means. It's a new album of the month. And for May, we've gone with an album that was released in 2014. It's a all-girl 5-piece band from Brooklyn, New York. They're called Habibi, very heavily influenced with the Arabic sound and members of the band of Arabic descent. They have released a couple of albums so far, and the album that we are featuring as the album of the month is their debut studio album, the self-titled Habibi in 2014. They had their second album Anywhere But Here in 2020, and their new album Dream Machine comes out on May 31st. I'm looking forward to that one, so I thought the perfect time to introduce you to Habibi. As I mentioned, from Brooklyn, New York, they're kind of blends psychedelic rock with kind of 60s girl group harmonies. It's a sound I love. Reminds me a lot of Scottish band Adventures in Stereo. A little bit of a kind of beat happening sound to it as well. We've got some great songs coming up from them all month long. We've kicked things off with track 4 of 11 on their debut album. That was Sunset. Hope you enjoy that one. You can check them out as well if you want to check out their other stuff before we get to it. habibitheband.bandcamp.com, and you can find all the stuff in all the other usual places as well. So, in this part, we're going to turn our attention from the domestic game to the international scene, and we're going to talk Canada soccer and their search for the new men's national team head coach. Now, we originally recorded this for last week's show and had to cut it out because of time constraints. So what we've done is kind of blended stuff that we've said last week with some stuff that we've added in this week, as the search for Canada's next men's national team coach starts to heat up. The head coaching rumours have been rife and in full flow this week. Kind of started when a journalist called Nizar Kinsella, who bizarrely writes for the London Evening Standard, wrote a piece, and then Joshua Cloak in The Athletic followed it up, naming some that were in the mix for the Canadian national team jobs, some that had been approached and had turned down interest as well. So we'll chat about some of these names that has cropped up, because interviews have begun. 3 domestic coaches are apparently in the frame. The interim head coach, Mauro Biello, 51 years old. Forge FC head coach, Bobby Smirniotis, 45. And Cavalry FC head coach, Tommy Wheeldon Jr., 44. Now, as much as I love Tommy, and I have a lot of time for Tommy, I don't think he should be in the frame for the next Canadian men's national team head coach.
I too have a deep appreciation for Tommy. It was good to see him last week. I'm looking forward to seeing him this week. I'm a little surprised that he's still being linked with this after his extension of his position at Cavs. Didn't that just happen?
Yeah. I mean, it shows you how highly thought of he is, which is good to maybe they just want to hear his ideas as well. Of course, if he can get the job and then somehow switch the ball out before we play Argentina, maybe that would help us.
You're hilarious. Oh,
maybe that's why they brought him in. Can you share some of these shithousery tactics that we can use for the national team?
Michael, you're so funny.
I mean, out of him and Bobby, you've got to think Bobby is like way above him in the pecking order for taking over. And I'm not averse to Bobby taking over because we've seen what he's done in bringing young players through. I don't know, though, that this is the perfect time in the programme for Bobby to take over ahead of a tournament like Copa, but more importantly, ahead of a hosting World Cup, given somebody that's not got experience at the international level, the helm, would be a big risk.
Both Bobby and Tommy love a challenge, and they've both proven really great at building things. But I think there would be challenges that they would face here that they've never faced before. And so either of those guys taking on that role one day, I think would be great. I don't know that this is the best moment for them to do that, aside from the fact that they could have the chance to coach at a home World Cup.
Yeah. And being Canadian, big tick in that box. I don't care what the nationality is, and we'll come to that with some of the others in a sec, but it would be a huge step up for them. And I'm not saying there's players like this in the Canadian squad now, but I think there has been in the past that would maybe look at them and either think to themselves or say publicly if there's a little spat, what have you done?
Yeah. I think
I've played at this level. What have you done?
I think we're both thinking of some of the same people.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's interesting. Mauro Biello obviously gets interested in the frame. I know you've lots of time for him. I've some time for him. I don't think he should be the coach. You've got to go in a different direction for me. So I would rule all three of these guys out.
At this moment, I'd be surprised if Mauro did get it, but I'd be happy for him if he did. And I agree with you. I don't think it's going to be any one of those three.
Joshua Cloak said in his article that what could work against the two CPL coaches is the Federation's desire to make a splash and their interest in an international manager. What should work against them is their experience at this level, not that you want to make a splash. I don't care where the person has come from, but he has to have experience at the top level in the world game.
They do, yeah.
Ideally at international level for clubs and not just for countries and not just for clubs.
It's weird though, when you think of making a splash, you think of spending money, and that's not what you think about, especially at this moment with the CSA.
No, but to make a splash and to get a big name international coach, you do have to spend money.
Although
sadly,
they've been making a splash with their match announcements, but yeah, okay.
Well, I mean, they've missed a huge opportunity to make the splash because sadly over the weekend, Jurgen Klopp had decided he wanted to apply and he sent an email to Canada Soccer, but their website was down and it bounced back. So he's like, I'm not bothering with this tin pot organisation.
Ich bin raus.
I mean, when you find out that the website for the National Federation has gone down, possibly because the domain renewal hasn't been paid, I can't understand why someone like Jose Mourinho wasn't interested in talking to him about the job.
Are you saying Canada's not special enough for him?
Well, Jose Mourinho and Frank Lampard were mentioned in this initial article as declining an interview. And genuinely, I'm pleased about that. I wouldn't want either for the job, especially Lampard.
I mean, Jose Mourinho, Canada could never have afforded. It would have been somewhat entertaining.
Like Jose Mourinho, I love as a person. I think he's a good coach. He would be butting heads constantly, and it would just be constant disruption. So that's why I wouldn't want him involved.
But yeah, I agree that I was going to call him his whole nickname, but that Frank Lampard's not an option. I'm happy with that.
No, we didn't mention when he was mentioned in the frame a few weeks back because I thought it was nonsense. But anyway, there were 6 international managers mentioned, and I'm going to group these in 2 different groups of 3. 3 that I don't think would be my choice. Thierry Henry, 46 years old, currently in charge of the French under-23 squad, obviously played at the highest level, knows the Canadian setup from his time here with Montreal, never seemed fully settled here, and of course said he left Montreal for family reasons, so why would he want to come back? Has got this international experience now with France at under-23 level, but he's just taken that on this year. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He's 51 now. He's done nothing since being manager at Man United in 2021. That was one of the things that was the key linchpin of this London Standard article, but not for me.
I'd prefer not to have the babyface assassin.
And then Aitor Karanka, who I'll be honest, I'd never heard of and had to look up on Wiki. I found out he's 50. He's played for Spain. He's had a stint with Colorado Rapids in 2008 as a player. And he's not done anything since June last year, where a mutual termination as head coach of Maccabi Tel Aviv in Israel.
Yeah, I'll take a pass on Karanka.
Do you know who he is?
The name sounds, the last name sounds familiar. The first name does not.
Yeah, I was like, I have no idea who the guy is. So then we come to the 3, that any one of these 3 I would make a case and be happy with. Paul Clement, 52 years old, hasn't coached since January 2023, has been assistant to Carlo Ancelotti. Carlo Ancelotti, of course, is a guy that's got connections to Vancouver, and everyone's kind of had him as a dream manager, either for the Whitecaps or for Canada down the line. But Clement's got a good resume, and he's the kind of high caliber coach that I think the players would buy into. I think he'd get a lot of respect.
He was with Ancelotti at Bayern.
Yeah. And like he's been involved in England at various levels with Fulham and Chelsea. He was assistant with the Republic of Ireland, assistant at PSG, assistant at Real Madrid, head coach at Derby County, assistant at Bayern, head coach at Swansea, Reading, Bruges, and then assistant at Everton most recently. He was assistant with Bayern 2016-17.
Yeah, so I think he was there with Ancelotti and with Pep, I think.
Oh. So, I mean, he's got a good pedigree.
No, just Ancelotti, sorry. Just Ancelotti.
But
Pep's already gone.
He's never managed at international level.
Right.
And I do feel at this stage in the programme, someone with international experience should be what they're looking for. Even if it's like at youth under 23, but someone that's kind of got that, but ideally at senior level. Which brings us to the Frenchman, Hervé Renard, 55 years old now, very varied managerial career, had a couple of stints with Zambia, Angola, Ivory Coast, most recently 4 years with Saudi Arabia, and he's currently in charge of French women. Not all French women, just the national team players, not just women in France.
Oh, Michael. Oh, they're so awful. We talked about him before, and Renard, and
we talked about him during AFCON when Ivory Coast tried to get him back in.
I can't. I don't see it as I don't see it as being a fit. I mean, he's very motivational.
What appeals to me though is he's won 2 African Cup of Nations.
He
admittedly 2012 and 2015.
If you don't know anything about him, go Google the video of him speaking to the Saudi Arabian players. I think was it at halftime of the Argentina game in the 2022 World Cup. I think it was pretty inspirational.
But why don't you think it would be a fit?
I don't know. I just don't.
I like age-wise. I like experience-wise.
I don't think it's a fit personally.
I mean, for me, he's one of my top 2 candidates from this list. And the other one, and I know some folk won't want him because he's American. He's 50 years old. Jesse Marsh. Which I think if he's interested in this job, you bite his hand off and take him. Now, I know that flies in the face of what I was saying about I want a coach with international experience. He has been assistant with the US national team.
Yeah.
But it's mostly club experience he's got. So I'm contradicting myself, I know. I've just always liked him as a coach. I always thought it'd be great if he came to the Whitecaps. I think he's got good ideas. I think he can shake up Canada soccer. And I'd like to hear what he has to say about it. But what's your thoughts on him?
As much as the American thing, I probably could get over. It's more the Red Bull thing that I don't like about him at this moment. But honestly, the list we're looking at, I don't know if we're going to add in.
Well, we can add in Greg Vanni because he's been floated about.
Yeah.
The name that's missing for me, but it could be because he has no interest in it right now, is Wilfried Nancy. If you're looking at a domestic coach.
Oh yeah.
There's
no way he's going to leave Columbus in the middle of the season. I wouldn't think.
No.
But yeah, Wilfried Nancy I think would be great.
Down the line, you have to think he's going to get the reins one day, but I mean, maybe not. Maybe clubs for him. But yeah, Van is the other one that's been floating about there.
Marsh's experience, I think he was was he not Bob Bradley's assistant for the men's national team?
It was 2010, 2011. So,
yeah, that's Bob Bradley.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. I think he could do really well in this role, actually. So out of the list, yeah, him or Vanni, I think to me probably makes the most sense. As
Sartini, I agree. I'd hate to lose him at Vancouver, but yeah.
No, I meant Greg Vanni, the Greg father, as inebriated used to call him. No, I think both of those that makes some sense, and I think they could do well. No, I prefer a Canadian. I prefer someone with no connection to Red Bull. I prefer someone with no, maybe not a former TFC manager, but I think Marsh is more qualified than Vanni. But I think they could be helpful. Are they who I want? No, but I think they could do a job.
Now, the thing with Jesse Marsh now is it's now been mentioned that he is in the top 4 for the South Korea job.
Yeah, I
He's
heard
obviously
that.
in demand. Should that accelerate Canada Soccer to try and get him on board? Or if you're not wanting him on board to begin with, it's like, fine, just let him go to South Korea. That would seem a strange move for him, though, I have to say.
What, South Korea?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know if he speaks Korean.
Lots of coaches go places where they don't speak the language, Michael. I think I'm not shocked by that at all. I think that I think South Korea they've played some tactically astute football over the years, and so I think having someone like Jesse Marsh would be appealing to them. And I think he could go there and do a really good job. Yeah, I'm not surprised by it. Is Canada a better fit? Maybe that would be better for him in some ways. He knows the country a little bit, and obviously the culture would be less of a change for him. But I'm not surprised. I mean, yeah, I'm not surprised at all. And also from the Korean side, they've brought in foreign coaches with certain types of pedigree before. Obviously, the first one that comes to mind is like a Gus Hiddink. Yeah, was Afshin his assistant there? I forget now. Afshin was his assistant somewhere.
Oh,
it might have been South Korea.
I think he might be. Let me just check that quickly.
But yeah, so they brought in foreigners who they think offer them something, and not just a name, but offer them the ability to get the best out of their players, or to challenge them, or to make them think about things in a different way. And maybe in Jesse Marsh, they see someone who is a part of that kind of bigger, as painful it is for me to say this, the bigger kind of Dead Bull, philosophy of football that has done well in part, and that's attractive to them. So I'm not surprised by it, and I don't know if that, from the Canadian perspective, if that immediately makes them respond or makes them change their approach in terms of immediacy or urgency or whatever.
Yeah, I guess it's how high in the pecking order he is, or the candidates that they're interviewing.
And here's I don't know how these things work, Michael. I don't know how much you understand these things, but I think the best thing that Canada can do in this search is be open and honest and like authentic with whoever they're trying to hire. Right. So if they already have dialogue with Jesse or his agent or his people or whatever, and you hear about this, yeah, maybe it's worth a call to whoever you're connecting with, just to say, hey, I saw this report, what's going on, or where are things at, or how does this impact the conversations we've had or we're going to have, or whatever. Like, just be open and honest about it, right? Like, Canada, we're not in a position where we're throwing money around, right? So it's not like we can say, hey, we'll offer you crazy more money than a well-established World Cup side like South Korea can.
Yeah. I mean, if we had money, we'd renew our domain names in time.
Exactly. But anyways, so yeah, I don't see this changing things drastically in terms of Canada's approach, or necessarily their likelihood of getting him.
Yeah, there's that as well. And you were right. Afshin was assistant to Gus Hiddink, South Korea, then went to Suwon Blue Wings as assistant before returning back to the national team a couple of years later with Dick Advocaat.
Yeah, there's another one. They had a bunch of Dutch guys that they brought in.
Yeah. And as I'm putting this podcast together, a breaking news out of Germany. Florian Plettenberg said on Twitter that the former national coach of Turkey, Stefan Kuntz, is a candidate now to become the new national coach in Canada, and the first concrete talks have taken place. Now, there's been many Kuntz involved in Canadian soccer over the year. I'm sure he wouldn't be the last one either. But didn't get a chance, obviously, for Zach to comment on that. But what fun we'll have talking about that in next week's show. let us know your thoughts from that list. Who excites you? Who ticks the boxes for you? Let us know. aftncanada@hotmail.com by email or aftncanada on Twitter/X. Is there another name that you'd like to maybe get thrown in? I mean, the interviews are starting now, or continuing. I don't know how many folk they've interviewed. It feels such a slow process, and I know there's other things that they have to sort behind the scenes in terms of the budget, structure, legal things that's hanging over them, domain renewals. Who's got time to do all those things? But it's a very important appointment. It has to be the right one. If it's not in time for Copa, I don't care. Because, I mean, ultimately, Copa's going to be a tall order for Canada. I want us to get the right person. And if that means waiting a couple of months, doing more interviews to get it, then that's what we do. It has to be the right person to lead us into 2026. It is such a monumental time for the game in this country that this has to be right.
Yeah.
But yeah, let us know your thoughts. So, last thing, football talk-wise for the show, some news came out this week about Canada and World Cup 2026, Vancouver hosting the games, and the mayor, Ken Sim, held a press conference during the week, who, to my knowledge, no actual soccer media were invited to, which is a little bit disappointing. You would kind of hope that they would kind of invite some of them along. I couldn't have gone anyway because I was travelling with TSS. But the big headlines that came out of it is the cost for British Columbia to host the matches in the 2026 World Cup has now doubled, going up from the original projections of between 240 and 260 million to estimated costs of 483 to 581 million. And understandably, that hasn't gone down too well. The government explained it by the fact that Vancouver now has extra matches, which hadn't been factored into it, so that brings with it extra costs. And you can understand a lot of the people that don't want the World Cup here to begin with up in arms about this and taxpayers' money getting spent on that when it could be spent on other things.
Right. What is the estimated revenue generated from having the tournament here?
Well, that is something that it's been hard to put a finger on, but initially they said it's probably going to generate over $1 billion.
Right.
For local restaurants, for the hospitality industry, and
which generates tax revenue, right?
Yes. For me, what you're going to bring in far outweighs what you're putting out. And I know it is, like on paper, it looks an obscene amount. There's no getting away from that. I mean, it's horrendous when you look at the poverty here and the need for more teachers and the need for more schools and everything like that. It is a lot to be spending on any event. But if you can bring in double that or more than double that in the short term and also the long term, because you've got the world's eyes on Vancouver and now for a longer period of time as well, I feel it's beneficial. Obviously, we're going to say that, though, as soccer people.
Yeah, I think I've been really clear about this from the onset of the tournament coming here and whether or not Vancouver is going to be involved. And people can criticize me for this. I don't care about the politics. I don't care what it costs. This will be you think, things like Expo 86 and the
Olympics,
the Olympics and whatever. You think these were like big things? Like the World Cup is like another level. And, I think it's amazing.
Because as much as Canadians love the Winter Olympics, and we've talked about this many times on the show before.
Yeah.
From a worldwide perspective,
yeah.
Most of the world do not give a toss about the Winter Olympics.
Yeah. This is serious another level. Like the amount of people that are going to be coming here for this is crazy. And it will be incredibly memorable and meaningful if you get to go to it or be a part of it. Aren't they trying to set up a fan viewing area at Empire?
Yeah, they are. Well, at the P&E, the amphitheatre is getting rebuilt. So for the next 2 years at the P&E Fair, it's not getting used for the concerts. So they're They're building it for the viewing up there, which will be fantastic. Tickets are going into a lottery. So, I mean, the demand's going to be there. The eyeballs are going to be there. I just hope the hotel infrastructure's there for it, and people aren't going to get priced out of coming here, which there is a danger of, because summer hotel prices in Vancouver are high at the best of times.
I mean, okay, yeah, that's a concern, right? The accessibility is a concern, and you'll see that when the tickets, I think, are made. But the accessibility will be an issue. But overall, Michael, like people go to the World Cup, right? Like I remember, for example, being in Germany. I was just like, I know Mexicans love football, but like I've never, like, there was like so many Mexicans traveled from, and then as you talk to them, you're like, oh, where are you from? They're like, oh, I'm from Guadalajara, whatever. Like I'm like, how many people do you travel with, and how long are you here? Like, people like will travel for the World Cup. Like it's crazy.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
ridiculous.
the government spokesman said these fans are going to be eating, they're going to be staying, they're going to be exploring BC before, during, and after the tournament.
Oh, yeah.
And they are. Because it's not just Vancouver that's going to get the benefit. You're going to get folk between games getting the ferry over to the island, spending money on the island, going to the interior. So, I mean, it's huge benefit.
For the groundhoppers, I was talking to my buddy Flo about this. I mean, like, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the MLS and the CPL and the League One schedule.
Well, Don Garber's already said MLS will shut down.
But for the whole tournament?
Yeah.
The whole tournament?
Yep. He's talking about having a January, February mini tournament down in somewhere like Florida or Texas to make up for the games.
Interesting.
Which I'm all for.
So some of the groundhoppers,
groundhoppers,
maybe they can catch that, like if MLS has games up until the
I
tournament.
mean, CPL would be clever to try and have some games on to try and get people
but
out
those
to them.
Those who are groundhoppers, they're going to come and they're going to
like League One as well. It's like if you can put some games on, it's like, oh, let's go to Kinsman, let's go to Swangard, whatever.
Did you know? Do you know for the Fan Fest? There's the one at whatever P&E there. With the Women's World Cups here, did they not have a Fan Fest right at where the
at the back of Queen Elizabeth Theatre?
Yes.
Yeah.
Will there be another one there for this as well?
I don't know. I don't know if they're just having the main one up at the P&E. You'd think they would have one downtown though, but
you think they have multiple?
The Canadian Taxpayers Federation, who I've seen comment on many things over the years and do come across as, they come across, that gesture that you've just done. They said they gave this update a red card. Oh, how witty!
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. It's unacceptable that the province and the city have more than doubled the costs to hold just a few soccer matches. The more money that's wasted on FIFA, the less money that can support British Columbians.
Right.
Went on to say, like, look how many teachers you could hire and schools could be built for that. Now, I don't like kids. I don't have kids. Fuck them. I want to see football.
In all seriousness, if you love football and you are disappointed about this money being spent, I'm happy to agree to disagree with you. It's not something I would, get angry with people about.
Yeah, and we're not saying that there's not poverty and the money should be directed to that.
Of course. But I really
$30 a month, $30 a year, $3 a month for your AFTN extra podcast subscriptions.
Get on that now. But no, this, I think economically, this is different than like building a sports team at a stadium on a bad deal or whatever. You know what I mean? That you always hear people complain about or whatever, like, oh, my taxpayer money built that stadium and now it's empty and they don't play here anymore and it costs us more than whatever money we made from it. I really genuinely believe that the money that governments in Canada invest into this tournament will generate that money and more.
There's a lasting legacy.
Yeah, I might be wrong. I'm not an economist. But and I think the specialness of being a part of that will be huge.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, not guarantee you, but there will be a segment that will then after this will come out and say, the next time this comes along, we need to host it ourselves, right? Because once you have that experience, you want it more. You want it more.
Yeah. On the tax side, and I'm not saying this to be facetious or funny, but it's like everyone's taxes goes to things that they don't benefit from.
Totally.
Like, genuinely, we don't have kids, so money going to schools, nurseries, that doesn't benefit us. Would I not want money spent on that? Of course not. It's like money, taxes benefit everyone. There's going to be tax money that's spent on projects that I don't agree with. But there's going to be things that is spent on that I like, that other folk don't agree with. That is taxes. That is just the world. That's how things operate. Yeah, we should have more schools. We should have more nurses, more teachers, more hospitals. Hopefully money can get generated from that. Now, the other stuff that came out was about the renovations that BC Place will be needing. Major renovations to accommodate the event. That's what? New elevators was the first thing listed. Which I was like, I'm not sure that's... Well, yeah, having been stuck in the BC Place lift, the more elevators that work, the better. That hasn't happened since. If it happens again, I've jinxed it. But there has to be electrical upgrades, VIP facilities, and a connection to the park, casino, and hotel. None of those strike me as being massively important in the grand scheme of things. For me, it's the pitch and the grass pitch that's getting put in. So there was talk about that as well this week, just to round this off.
Yeah, this is the most exciting part of all this.
Yeah, so they think the pitch is going to have to get in early, maybe even into 2025. Now, it might come towards the tail end of 2025, so after the MLS season is done.
After the MLS Cup final that the Whitecaps host.
Hopefully. Maybe can be put in for that MLS Cup final. But it's likely to be at BC Place for all of 2026. Now, we've talked before, the Whitecaps won't be at BC Place for all of 26 because FIFA need the stadium for, I think, a month beforehand and some time after it as well. So the Whitecaps are going to have to play some games on the road. But they have to have test events to test the pitch. So the Whitecaps will be part of that. We'll get some friendlies there. And this is exciting, but the most exciting thing is the decision on whether the pitch stays as a grass pitch or not is down to PAVCO, and they haven't made a decision yet. You have to tailor that, though, with the fact that there's concerts and there's trade shows and what that would do to a natural grass pitch. But the fact that they're even considering it might stay, I'm clinging on to that. Because look at the players the Whitecaps could attract with a grass pitch and a beautiful city and a World Cup stadium.
Yeah, I mean, Andy O'Brien would love if it was a grass pitch. No, I mean, that would be ideal for the Whitecaps and really for football in Vancouver and football in Canada to have a stadium that's grass that's that size, right? And I agree with you, Michael. I hope that is what happens. That would be amazing. But there has to be, what does that mean for BC Place and PAVCO and the revenue streams and other events held there? It's right. I don't think you can do what they currently do to a grass pitch and it not ruin it, right? Or the way they cover it with those whatever giant pieces of plastic or whatever, and then have the concerts or have the boat shows or the whatever, right? So I don't know what the solution there is. I don't know if other venues in Vancouver, like what's it called? What's the big place? The where everything is, the other big shows are on the water there. No,
Canada Place.
Canada Place, that's it. So I don't know if that can host some of those things or whatever. Like it can be offset that way.
I don't think it's got the size, but
I don't know if you can get boats in there or whatever.
Like by the water, you'd think they'd find a way.
Just line up around outside.
Yeah. Just put a hole in the floor.
Yeah.
What could go wrong?
So
build an ark.
But I guess one can dream, right?
Yeah.
And
all we can do.
Here's the thing. If you're clinging to that, we were told for a long time, now Vancouver's out of 2026, right? And that got changed, right? And we know who to thank for that. But now
we were told TSS weren't in the Canadian Championship. That got changed.
No, but seriously, with this, you were told, BC Place will never be grass. BC Place could be grass. It's about the money that it costs to keep it as good grass and what it'll limit in terms of what else can be in there. So,
and we're known for our grass here. So, I mean,
there you go. There you go. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But that was.
I'm clinging on to that. It's like, but But that is it for the football chat. It's not it for the show, of course, as we are going to finish things off with this episode's wavelength. So for this episode's wavelength, since it's celebrating all things 1974 and the Whitecaps' first ever match, I wanted to play a football song from 1974. Now, whenever I think of a 1974 football song, I think of the brilliant Scotland World Cup single Easy Easy, with the lyrics Yabba dabba doo, we support the boys in blue, 'cause it's easy, easy, which proved not necessarily to be the case as they went home undefeated, but after the group stage. Now, I've already played that song in Wavelength. I've played a sampled version of that song in Wavelength by a group called The George Squares. So I wanted to find maybe the B-side from it, or something else that was released on a whole album that was released for the 1974 World Cup by the Scottish national team, and that's what I'm bringing you just now. Yes, it's a terrible song, but it's only 2 minutes long, so just live with it. This is the Scotland 1974 World Cup squad with their cover version of the England 1970 World Cup song Back Home, and this is Back Hame. Scotland's 1974 World Cup squad, Back Hame. Yes, it's terrible. It is a good song. It's also the theme tune over the years for the famous TV show Fantasy Football League. So that is it now for the show. Just before we go though, Zach, any final thoughts from yourself? Anything that's caught your eye this week?
You're going to find me on X at Zachary AM. I just want to, this is obviously a big weekend for the Whitecaps and celebrating their history. And I think we're recording this on, well, technically we started
Monday now.
We started on May 5th and we're ending recording on May 6th. So I just want to give a shout out. It's kind of a sad shout out or whatever, but one Whitecaps player from the MLS era who only played 1 year, only scored 2 goals for the Whitecaps. But May 6th would have been the 34th birthday of Masato Kudo. And I was only made aware of that from Sachiko, who is someone who came to see him play here and who connected to via social media, and she had posted just in memory kind of thing of him on the day of his birth on social media. And so just shout out to his family and his loved ones.
Sad.
And Yeah. I know obviously as the Whitecaps are celebrating, it brings back lots of memories for people like of obviously Dominic Mobilio and others who are gone. But yeah, when I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, I just want to bring attention to him because he was a lovely man, and his time here was cut too short from that head injury.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously he lost his life way too early.
Taken way too soon. My final thoughts, as you know, I watch football from all over the place. So I had a late night last night. I stayed up I was watching both the elimination finals in the A-League, but last night it was an exciting elimination final because it was the Melbourne Derby, Melbourne Victory and Melbourne City. Melbourne City have been in every A-League Cup final since 2019. So this is to get into the semi-finals. So it's kind of like the quarterfinals, but they call it the elimination final, the way that they do things in Australia. Great game. Melbourne City took the lead in the first half. Melbourne Victory then went down to 10 men with what was a tough 50-50 call. I could have seen it just being a yellow, but it was a straight red that was issued. It seemed an accidental kick to the face by me, but I don't know. I'm Scottish. Accidental kicks to the face happen. So, Melbourne Victory down to 10 men. Second half, it was all Melbourne Victory. Time is ticking down. It's deep in the game. 88th minute and 10-man Melbourne Victory tie things up. It looks like the game is heading to extra time. Then in stoppage time, with basically the last kick of the game, Melbourne Victory score. Only for it to get chopped off because one of their players was like inches offside when the line was drawn. It was a tough one. So I went to extra time, no further goals, but then Melbourne Victory won in a penalty shootout. It was fantastic. You can check the highlights out. I love the A-League. And they have two-legged semi-finals coming up to see who gets into the final. And my team, Wellington Phoenix, the Kiwis, finished second in the standings, and they will now take on Melbourne Victory in the two-legged semi-final. So go Phoenix, go! But that is it for the show. We'll be back with another one soon. As always, thank you for listening. Stay safe, take care, and mon the Caps.
Going to your first match is an experience you never forget. The atmosphere of what's going on around the pitch looks beautiful, and you always look and go, wow, I'd love to play here one day. If you get the bug, it's going to stay with you for life.
AFTN